And welcome everyone to the 2022 Royal Nakshatra Summit. It's such an honor and pleasure and blessing to be here with all of you today. I'm very excited for our esteemed panel of Sanjay Rath, Sam Geppi, Komilla Sutton, and Eve Mendoza. We are going to get started very shortly, but I would just like to open with some quick mantras to honor the devatas. So we'll just take a short moment of silence followed by mantras. If the panelists would like to join these mantras, when they recognize them, please do so. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatim Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jaistarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspatanaha Srinmanu Tibihi Sidasadanam Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Korume Deva Sarvakayeshu Sarvada Siddhi Buddhi Shakti Sahita Shriman Mahaganati Pataye Namo Namaha Nirvignam Kuru Om Ya Kundendu Tusharahara Tavala Ya Shurvava Sravrata Ya Vina Varadanda Mandi Takara Ya Shweda Padmasana, Ya Brahma Chuta Shankara, Prabhritir Vihir, Devai Sada Vandita, Saman Batu Saraswati, Bhagavati, Nishesha Jajapaha. Om Guru Brahman, Guru Visnahor, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha, Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha, Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Om Dabakasuma Sankasham Kashapaya Mahadutim Tamurim Sarvapapanganam Pranatasmi Davakaram. Om Dabakasuma Sankasham Kashapaya Mahadutim Tamurim Sarvapapanganam Pranatasmi Davakaram. Om Dabakasuma Sankasham Kashapaya Mahadutim Tamurim Sarvapapanganam Pranatasmi Davakaram. Om Ram Hrim Ram Sahasrayaya Namaha. 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 Om Twameva Matacha Pitta Twameva Twameva Bandhucha Saka Twameva Twameva Vijaya Dravanam Twameva Twameva Sarvam Amriteshwari Namaha Twameva Sarvam Amriteshwari Namaha Twameva Sarvam Amriteshwari Namaha. Hari Om Om Namah Shivaya. Namaste. Thank you all. Welcome to the 2022 Royal Nakshatra Summit. Let's get things underway. First to present today, we have Sanjay Rath presenting on Nakshatramsha, understanding the Dvadamsha division of the lunar mansions. Welcome, Sanjay ji. It's such a blessing to have you.
Thank you, Kṣaṇāti. Thank you very much. Namaste, Komilla ji. Namaste, Sam ji. Namaste, Eve. Namaste, Kṣaṇāti. As I've just learned today, you are the age of my child. It is such a pleasure, like an elderly uncle, to be talking to somebody young. It shows that there is a lot of future in Jyotish. What we all started, Komilla ji and I, we all started a journey many years back. It is bearing fruits. So today's topic is nakshatramsha. and I will just say the Guru mantra once. Gurave Namah. Okay, the presentation. Kṣaṇāti, the slides. I have some slides for you.
You can share screen, Sanjay ji.
Yes. So if I share, yeah, this one. It's come, right? All of you should be able to see the screen. I have a few slides for you. Okay. Our topic for today is Nakshatra Amsha. From the point of view of Jyotish that we all know, we know Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra. There is a chart over there called the Bhamsha chart. Bhamsha chart is the 127th division of a Rashi. But you will realize that this 127th division of a Rashi is the same as taking a nakshatra and splitting it into 12 parts. So it is a totally different approach that we are doing today. Vargas are of three kinds. Rashi, Amsha. Rashi is Surya. It is controlled by the sun god. The number 12 is called Surya. That is why there are 12 Rashis. And the Rashi Amsha is a division of the Rashi chart. There are various charts. 16 taught by Parashara, few more added by Jaimini, and more by the seers. But there is one part of Jyotish which has not been studied. There are people who have written on this, but not much serious work has been done. Today I take this opportunity to open this topic. It is Nakshatramsha, divisions of the nakshatra. Think of a horoscope in which there are 27 nakshatras, in where we are talking about planets in nakshatra and not of planets in houses or in rashis. It is a totally different way of looking at the Jyotish chart. You all know that there is something to this. But so far, most of us have been working on Vimshottari lordships of the nakshatras. Hopefully, someday I will take this further. But right now, I will touch only one part of it called Nakshatra Amshas, where I am talking about the Dwadash Amsha division, or the 1/12th part of a nakshatra. And this is called Chandra avastha, the avastha of the mind. What is it that my mind likes? What is it that my mind does not like? It is such a small thing, but it is such an important thing in Jyotish. It is something we can use all the time once we know that yes, such a thing exists. We know about avasthas, but this is a Chandra avastha. So let us go to the for some reason I can't change my slide.
The mouse is not present, sir.
Why is my mouse on? Yeah, it went. Okay. Sorry. Chandra avastha as defined by Phaladipika of Mantreshwara. A nakshatra of 13 degrees 20 minutes is divided into 12 equal parts. Each part is measuring 1 degree 6 minutes 40 seconds. This is a nakshatra Dwadasamsha, or 1/12th part of a nakshatra. It is in measure, it is exactly the same as a Rashi Bhamsa chart, 1/27th part of a Rashi. Mathematically, they are the same. So nakshatra divided by 12 is equal to Rashi divided by 27, which is 1 degree, 6 minutes, 40 seconds. So what we are focusing on is a nakshatra when we split it into 12 parts, Dwadashamsha. How are the Dwadashamshas being mapped? One of the mappings of the Dwadashamsha of the nakshatra is to the Rashi. So if somebody is born at 1 degree of Ashwini nakshatra, we can say that it is mapping to Aries. See, up to 1 degree, 6 minutes, 40 seconds is Rashi 1, Aries. The second division starts at 1, 6, 40 and ends at 2, 13, 20. So somebody's got the moon, let us say, in 2 degrees of Ashwini. That is mapping into Taurus. It is a totally different mind. What the mind likes at 1 degree of Ashwini is totally different than what it likes at 2 degrees of Ashwini. You see, now we are going into very subtle divisions of the mind. This is an impulse that is inside of us. And like this, we have 12 to 13 degrees, 20 minutes. The 12th division ends at 13:20. So for example, I was born when the moon was at the fag end of Satabhishaj. So obviously mine is mapping to the 12th or to Pisces. Now, what does that mean? Let's learn that from Phaladipika. Here, if you see the Sanskrit, I mark them on the side, and this is my chart. So if you see the number 12, the Sanskrit given for that is Gita. The exact Sanskrit word is Gita. Just one word is given. And we are supposed to understand, because that one word is supposed to expand into so many things. Gita is from Geet, music, singing, Bhagavad Gita, or maybe there are so many Gitas. Did you know that? There is a book which I love very much, Guru Bhakti Gita, my favorite. So Gita can be anything. It can be a spiritual song. It can be a divine song. It can just be a song. So the moon, if it shows up in 12 in this Bhamsha chart, so what do we have to do? We open up Sri Jyotisha or some other good software, just make the D27 chart and look at the placement of the moon over there. That will tell me which part of the nakshatra my moon was when I was born. If it is in Pisces, that means in the nakshatra Satabhishaj, my moon was in the last 1 degree 6 minutes. Get the idea? The software does the job. So it's not much of a botheration. It is not a new calculation that I'm asking you to do. This software is there. This chart is something you already know. It has been made by so many astrologers at the second year of Jyotish. You all learn these divisional charts. So all you got to do is to look at the placement of the moon in this chart and understand what the deeper things it can mean. This moon is sitting with Ketu over there, right? And a song constantly, among all the shlokas of the Guru Bhakti Gita, one thing catches me. Kashi Kshetra Tan Nivaso Janavi Charanodakam Gurur Vishweshwara Shakshat Tarakam Brahma Nishchitam. That Gita, that song from that Guru Bhakti Gita, it clicks on my head. Why? Tarakam Brahma means to cross over the creation of Brahma, to get moksha. How do I get my moksha? That thing clicks. That look, in that book it's written, by the grace of Kashi Vishwanath, Shiva, you will get it. You will cross the creations of Brahma. So that is why my moon is clicking on that. That is what is giving me joy. That is what is attracting me. Consciously or subconsciously, my mind is getting drawn to that. Even before we started this conversation today, I was having a nice little chat with Sam. It's been a long time. This COVID has kept us apart. And you know, the last time he was remembering we met was in a Agnihotri. A yagya was going on in California, in a very sacred place. Komilla ji will also remember. She is the one who used to draw all of us over there. And Swami Sita was there, and those Navagraha Homams were taking place. See, the fire is there, the smoke is coming from the fire that is rising. That's Ketu, that's Agni Tattva Ketu in Pisces in Mula Trikona. And Sam and I are connecting and we are talking. We both have the same planetary positions, like Rahu, Ketu is the same, Jupiter is the same, and yeah, we are connecting over there. You see that? And why do we connect over there? Why was it that I was immediately attracted to that? And I kept saying, hey, we need to make that happen. You see, the mind will automatically get clicked when that is being talked about. That is the Gita, the song divine. It's like a song that's playing inside me. For me, it has to be that music has to be there. I mean, even if somebody calls you, it has to be sort of musical. It can't be a rough thing. Then I'll feel like, okay, fine, I'll go away. You know, that's Pisces. Typical, trying to run away, trying to escape. You call it an escapist, call it whatever, but that's the way they are. So they just need that song divine. Now you look at any of the other divisions. I have broken that Sanskrit shloka into different parts for you to make it very, very easy. And right now it is being recorded, so it will always be available. Okay, for example, if you get it in Virgo, number 6, there's one word, roga, disease. Your mind is always attracted or caught up with disease. Maybe you are going to be a very good doctor. Maybe you are a very good healer. Maybe you are a very good Vaidya. Or maybe you are very afraid of disease. You know, some of those hypochondriacs or whatever that is, they are very scared of disease. So each of these, for example, number 3, if you are in Gemini, if the moon is in Gemini, whatever other conclusions that you may draw on that moon, one word is clearly given out here, prana hani, loss of pranas. That means somebody can steal your pranas. Hey, are you even aware that your pranas can be stolen? Some people say, I think somebody is doing black magic on me. Huh? What is this black magic? They are stealing your pranas. So you got to understand, if the moon is here in 3, that's a dangerous position for the moon. Prana hani. Some kind of a loss of pranas is happening. So we need to see, the person is very brave, gutsy. It's in house number 3. But then there's a danger to your life also. Right? You could be assassinated also if you're a president. So these are things that we get to learn from here. And a side which is not easily seen. So let's take it further. Here is a chart, very interesting, of an ex-president of the United States, Donald Trump. Right. So you can see his picture out there. And moon is in number 11. And if you see the Sanskrit word for this number 11, which is Aquarius, is Mrita Shitvam. Mrita Shitvam. Now, I have given the Sanskrit explanation over here to your side. You can see Mrishta. Mrishta is cleaned, polished. Okay. Asita is eaten. The place where everybody has eaten. Translation, happy, enjoys a great appetite in everything. Mark my words, everything. He has a great appetite for everything, not just food. So basically, it is an addictive personality. The personality is addictive. What do you mean by great appetite? Okay, we all go, let's say, we like one Coke. Okay, you had a Coke, fine, it's okay. You have 3 Cokes, that's not good. You know that's not good to have 3 Cokes. Everybody knows that. Google it. There are so many videos, people showing how metal can get dissolved in Coke and things like that. Now imagine somebody having 10 Cokes a day. 10 Coke cans every day. So even at 70 years of age in 2016, he needed fuel early in the day. The mind relishes unlimited food and drinks. There should be no limits on this. He hates people who are limiting food, limiting drinks, limiting enjoyments. There should be no limits. He doesn't believe in limits. That's the thing about Aquarius. They really know bhoga. We say Rahu, the lord of this sign is Rahu. He is the king of bhoga. So the mind loves bhoga. He can't understand what sort of fools are there in this planet who are not taking Coke. So think about it. I mean, that's the way he looks at it. I mean, why won't you take such a beautiful thing? He's actually got a very tiny amount of cocaine. Maybe that's good for you. So this whole thing was even debated. You know, I actually went and did some research on this. I mean, how serious was his addiction? And you can see out here, there is very research. And here in CNN, this topic was actually discussed very seriously. What's the impact of drinking a dozen Diet Cokes a day? It was discussed in CNN, okay? There could be so many things. They don't discuss my Jyotish. Look, my Jyotish is more relevant to the planet. Nobody wants to know about it. They said, Sanjay, you keep your Jyotish, you just tell us what's going to happen. But that's not the idea of Jyotish. The idea of Jyotish is you should know why it is happening. So look out here. 12 Cokes. And the New York Times reported that Trump downs a dozen Cokes each day. The New York Times. The newspapers are following him. They're chasing, taking pictures. Oh, he had another Coke. Click. He had another Coke. Click. We want proof of what? The president of America is hiding here and there and having Cokes. Is he a little child? What is going on? You know, think about people like us in India. We see CNN to see what's happening in America. What? They're chasing the president to see whether he's having Coke. I mean, think about it. And you compare. That is the same White House where President John F. Kennedy sat down. What's going on? So you start questioning, how bad is the addiction created by Rahu? That is the question. So basically in the chart, you need to see whether Rahu is creating an addiction problem, because you see, when we go back to the chart, you will see the moon is okay. It's over here. You can see it's in Aquarius in the D27 chart. But where is Rahu in his Rashi chart? And the Rahu in the Rashi chart, if I am right, I don't remember it now offhand. Yeah, it was in the 10th house. It was in the 10th house with his Lagna Lord in an eclipse. Oh my God, that's an eclipse combination in the 10th house. And what is the 10th house? It's work. He can't work without his Coke. Okay, let him have his Coke. Because if you need to get job done, okay. What about other foods? Is it just limited to Coke? Okay, I just wanted to check. Because moon is in Aquarius. It is an addictive personality. So it's not just about Coke, you know, it's about all meat. He loves every kind of meat. He loves every kind of things. And 16 pieces of fried chicken with biscuits and sides that can feed 4 to 8 people. Did he eat all that? He ate all that because people actually took pictures. So that means the moon in Aquarius is, can I use the word glutton? Maybe I can. But then you need to check Rahu. As I said, do not jump to conclusions. When the moon is in a particular sign in the D27 chart, that is the nakshatramsha. We get some information from the dictum. And based upon that information, I go check up the lordship and say, okay, whether it was Saturn or it was Rahu. It was Saturn. Saturn is the weakness, Rahu is the addiction. Ram's favorite foods are mostly meat and fish, but not much vegetables. He's not a fan of any vegetables, as you can see. His favorite vegetable is the potato chips. I mean, that's vegetable, right? No, that's not meat. It's potato chips. That's vegetable. I don't know how many of you will totally agree with those fries and those chips particularly. Have I made it very clear that the D27 chart is a very important chart? Particularly now I have shown you how by looking at the D27 chart, you will click in your own mind, hey, that's also nakshatramsha. Depending upon the sign the moon is in the D27 chart, you will take that as the portion. Then you will go back to this table and you will pick up the particular Sanskrit word. Now you are going to send me messages asking for translation of each of them, and I am not interested in writing a book right now. You got to go and study something on your own, right? So go do that research. Okay, this is a chart of Swami Vivekananda. Now, where do we find the moon in this? Moon, this is the D27 chart. Moon in this chart is in the sign Libra. Okay, what have we learned about the sign Libra? Asthana Vattam. Asthana Vattam. Asthana means place or a hall or an audience, an assembly or a room. Etavattam, greatness, such a state or a condition to such an extent you will display. That means there will be a time. There will be a time, an opportunity will be given to you. There will be a time, an opportunity will be given to you. And you will have to display your greatness in that time, in that hall. It will be a hall or an assembly where a number of people are there. You won't be alone. In front of a number of people, you will open your mouth and speak, or maybe you will dance, or maybe you will do something. You will do something. You could be dancing, you could be speaking, maybe you could be doing an act for America Has Got Talent. Hey, that's also nice, huh? So you will be doing something in front of a group, in front of an assembly, and you could become very, very famous. See that? So the opportunity will be given. What you do with that opportunity is to be seen from the rest of the chart. Now, this is a very important piece of information. If the moon is in Libra in the D27 chart, you really need to go and study Venus in that chart. Because Venus has to do with the gathering of people. Why are people gathering? What are they coming together for? Is it for dancing? Is it for talking? Is it for poetry? Is it for singing? That you got to see from the other divisional charts. Having seen that, then you got to see how this person is going to work over there. Now, there was a parliament of religions. Okay. And we have to see where this moon is placed and where the Venus is placed. particularly Venus, where it is placed in the Rashi chart, because the moon is in Libra. When the moon is in Libra in the D27 chart, Venus is empowered to deliver something in front of an assembly, in front of a group. And in Swami Vivekananda's chart, Venus was in Capricorn, in the second house, which is speech. Which is speech. And interesting, you observe, two planets are sitting over there, Mercury and Venus. Mercury and Venus are in the second house of speech. And he was speaking in the parliament of religions. The Dasha, now come to the Dasha. It was Jupiter Dasha, Jupiter Antar Dasha, Venus Pratyantar Dasha. Wow. Look at the timing. Jupiter Dasha, Jupiter Antar Dasha, but the Pratyantara is your Lagna, is your real important point, and that is Venus. Normally people will say for Sagittarius, Venus is a bad planet, 6th Lord, 11th Lord, but in D27, that Venus says, I will give you one chance and I will stand by you. This one chance, if you miss the boat. And he opened his mouth and he used the same two planets, Mercury and Venus, brothers and sisters of America. I mean, even today when I used to sit and think, I mean, what is so great about that? What is that? Some magical phrase, some kind of a mantra worked out there. Brothers and sisters of America. I mean, he could have said dads and moms of America, guys and dolls of America. I mean, why brothers and sisters? That Mercury and Venus, 6th from Aruda, all sannyasis, sadhus, brothers and sisters. He caught that. He caught that energy of Venus and Mercury. And not because of Jyotish, because of his meditation. His absolutely powerful meditation. He just caught it, and one speech, everything. It was like a storm. It changed India. It changed America. It changed India. Changed so many parts of the world. So you see, do you see how this thing works? So you realize that these little things are very important sometimes. That one thing changed everything in Swami Vivekananda's life. Now we come to another topic, Atma Karaka. See, I'm going to completely divert topics. I'm not covering, I don't have the time to cover each and every point, but I need to show some focus on the soul also. You need to check the placement of the Atma Karaka to know how the Atma Karaka karma is affecting the manas. The impulse coming from within the soul and how it is impacting and directing the mind. We saw the moon. The moon is an impulse of the mind itself. The Manakshetra, it's a whole field of so many minds. I have a mind, you have a mind, Eve has a mind, Kṣaṇāti has a mind. Right now, all these minds have come together. And all these minds are making this happen. It is not me alone. I am a nimitta. Maybe I am purified in the fire of Tejas to deliver this. That is why the knowledge has been given to me. But just because I am purified doesn't mean that I can do this. These minds have to come together. Eve has to be here, Kṣaṇāti has to be here, Sam has to be here, Komilla ji has to be here. And then all of the people who are listening to this, and all these minds come together. But that is the moon. What about my soul? You see, the soul must also have a role over here. That is what I am also going to touch now. The same way I am going to do it. Now, look at this guy. D27 chart, as I told you, is an impulse, good or bad. Good or bad will depend upon the planetary position as good or bad. What happens if you have an Atma Karaka like Saturn? And that Saturn chooses to be debilitated in the D27 chart. Parashara just says one word, strength and weakness. And you thought it was a loose statement. Parashara doesn't make any loose statements. Parashara cannot make any loose statements. So what was the strengths? We all like to listen. You just saw, I just showed you the strength of the mind of Swami Vivekananda, strength of the mind of Donald Trump. I showed you the two extremes. Now I'm coming to the soul. How is the soul? What is the strength of the soul? In this chart, Saturn is debilitated in Aries. The soul has a tremendous weakness. And it is sitting with which planet? Venus. It has to be a Venus-related weakness. Right? Now, Saturn is Atma Karaka, Venus is Amatya Karaka, and they are in Mesha Avastha. Mesha Avastha. Now, what is Mesha Avastha? Let us see the Sanskrit over there. Atma Sthanat Pravaso. Atma is self. Sthanat means place not. Pravaso, to live, means somebody who is living far away from your place of residence, or where you want to go, or where you think you will go. Now, think of somebody who's born in Europe, suddenly decides, I am going to pack my bags and I am going to China to teach them Christianity. Are you serious? You are serious about it, is it? It is not such an easy job. So anyway, this gentleman called David Livingstone decided he is going to do that in his life. And that is what happens when Saturn is the Atma Karaka debilitated in Aries. But Saturn doesn't rule China. Saturn is in Aries, means you have to go somewhere. You have to leave your place of birth. I want to get out of my place of birth. I want to get out of my city. Who really wants to get out? When the soul is in Aries in the D27 chart, you want to run away from your city. I want to get out from this place. Very interesting. But where will you go? He chose to go to China. Well, he chose China probably because of maybe Ketu in the Lagna. But that is not where he landed up. He landed up in Africa. And guess which planet rules Africa continent? Continents, you know the 7 planets that are ruling the continents. So Africa is ruled by Saturn. Very interesting. So then you run, he's Africa's greatest missionary. So his soul, he listened to the calling of his soul, and the soul said, it's a very hard journey. You are going to see some very, very horrible things. Are you willing to walk it? Because that Saturn is debilitated. He is going to question your strength. Are you strong enough? And he did. And his contribution earned him Fellow of the Royal Geographical Society of London. So interesting that do you remember what was the main purpose, his internal calling? He went to preach. He wanted to be a priest. So where did he go and preach? He preached in Africa. And he has become very famous. Everybody knows David Livingstone. Can you tell me how many people did he convert to Christianity? In his entire, what, 40 years, 40 odd years? One person. That is greatness. He actually ended up doing a lot of good work in geography. He instead of sitting there and converting them into Christianity and this, and he had his church, he prayed, they all came, they sang, they danced, they prayed, I mean, whatever. But the main thing was he connected the cultures. Are we good, Kṣaṇāti?
About 5 more minutes, sir.
I do have 5 more. Oh, that's good.
3, let's say 3 minutes.
If Guruji wants some of my time, that's completely okay. This is really
No. I'm good today. I've done my basic introduction of what nakshatramsha was, and also I wanted to show a little bit about the Atma Karaka at least. I wanted to ignite that spark. I think I've done that. Thank you, Kṣaṇāti, for this beautiful opportunity.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. It is such a blessing and pleasure to have your presentation. It was so profound and exciting, and definitely the parts with Trump were humorous as well. And both talking on the D27 chart from the moon and the Atma Karaka, very illuminating. I would just like to give the panel an opportunity if anyone would like to comment, respond, or ask Sanjay ji any questions. Now is an opportunity to do so.
I just wanted to say that it was very kind of secret knowledge that Sanjay always talks about. So extremely profound, and thank you.
Really, thank you so much. Thank you. So we are good, I think.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else?
I was going to just say thanks and how awesome it was, but I'm about to speak, so I'll just do it when I talk.
Yes,
it was very good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. And you and Komilla, they are going to make it happen next year, right? Okay.
Yes, I don't know about what you're saying. Namaste, Sanjay. Thank you.
Namaste.
Excellent. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my friend and brother, Sam Geppi, who's going to discuss Ganda, the 9 transitional nakshatras. Welcome, Sadasiva.
Thank you very much. You can see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Let me also, I also have a download here. I just put the link there in the manual to this, so you can click that and download it yourself as well. So yeah, I am going to talk about the transitional nakshatras when I get down here. And these are the nakshatras that exist between the 2 rashis. Whoops, get up here, 1 second. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the nakshatras that exist between the 2 rashis. For example, at 9 different points, you have where the nakshatras bridge the rashis, and we're going to talk about that. But I'm also going to start with just talking about the layout of the sky and the way that, especially in the Vedic texts, especially in the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, and then the Vedic astrology text, the way they describe the zodiac as the sky, and that we locate planets in the nakshatras, and then the rashis are laid on top of the nakshatras. So the entire connection to the sky of measuring both time and space, we're done with nakshatras, actually. And so I'm just going to just read through the manual here and give a sort of overview of that. And there's some diagrams here, especially of the sky, and then also some of these exact texts where you see exactly what was said in the Vedic astrology text about the zodiac, the nakshatras, the rashis aligned with them. You also see, like in the Surya Siddhanta, for example, you see the literal explanation of how the rashis and nakshatras are aligned and whatnot. So let's just, I'll just read through this. It says here, most students are comfortable interpreting planets in rashis or zodiac signs. Of course, Sanjay ji mentioned this as well. We're very comfortable, we're used to the signs, but may stumble when attempting to analyze the same portion of space through the nakshatras. So again, we understand that a planet is in Aries, but Aries has 2¼ nakshatras. There's the Ashwini part, there's the Bharani part, and there's the Kritika. And the Kritika is actually where Aries becomes Taurus. It's actually, the sky has a continuity, right? And so today we'll look at the nakshatra-based sky and how to see the transitional nakshatras as existing or bridging to rashis. And again, that happens at 9 different points. And then there are 3 points where there is no transitional nakshatra, which is called Gandanta, which is literally where the knot becomes untied. So you can also really see that these transitional nakshatras keeps a coherence in the zodiac, almost tying it together. And then the Gandanta portions are where the knot becomes loosened. And that's why those portions between the water and fire signs existing between Aslesha and Magha and Jeshta and Mula and Revati and Ashwini are where the knot becomes loosened. But at every other portion, there's this energy that maintains, and those are the transitional nakshatras that I'm also going to talk about. But first, let's actually just look at what is said about the nakshatras in the Vedas, literally like the Rig Veda and Yajur Veda, and then look at a few diagrams. So from the Yajur Veda, we see the earliest Vedic astrological references. Actually, it was also in the Rig Veda. It's in a section called the Vedanga Jyotisha. So we see the earliest Vedic astrological references and how timekeeping was approached. The year, the yuga, solar months, and seasons were all pinned together, then measured against the sidereal sky or the nakshatras. So in book 4, verse 4, stanza 11, it says, ye are Madha, Madhava, the months of spring. Then it goes on to say all the different 12 solar months or Sora months. We see Shukra and Shuchi, the months of summer, Nabha, Nabasya, the months of rain or Varsha, Isa, Urja, the months of autumn or Shard, Saha, Sahasya, the months of winter or Hemanta, and Tapa, Tapasya, the months of the cool season or Shishra. So again, these 12 portions or months of the year were pinned to the Earth Sun calculation, the Earth going around the Sun, or what's called the Sora year. These are exactly like this, like the 12 months of the calendar that we have now. The 12 seasonal months that they mention here are akin to the Gregorian calendar months of January, February, etc. So they had 12 calendar months, just like we have them. Again, just to put a little stick there, that's different than 12 zodiac signs. They were measuring the tropical sky or the Sora sky or the Earth going around the Sun calculation with 12 months, right? Just like we do. So the year length was also connected to the season. Sorry, this is a PDF, so it's a little choppy. So the year length and the connection of the seasons and solstices are also seen. So notice in this passage from the Vedanga Jyotisha, how they talk about all of these things together. 366 days of the solar year. In the year, there are 6 ritus or seasons. There are 2 ayanas or solstices. In the year, there are 12 solar months, and then 5 years make a yuga. All of this is in one section. So notice they're not mixing things. They're not talking about the zodiac. They're talking about the calendar. The solar year, in the year, there are 6 seasons. There are 2 ayanas, and there are 12 solar months. All these are grouped together. So they're literally explaining, this is explaining the Earth going around the Sun, which is 366 days. We break that up into 6 seasons. There are 2 solstices, and there are 12 solar months. And then 5 of those make a yuga, right? So again, this is talking about the calendar, but you're going to see how they bring in the nakshatras here in a second. So the following verses show how the new moon at that time that this was written was in Dhanishta, or they call it Shravishta. And this new moon began the Soli lunar month of Magha, which is a different month. It's a Soli lunar month, not a calendar or Sora month. It also shows how the solar calendar month of Tapa and the year Yuga begin on the winter solstice or that new moon. Or it's actually the winter solstice it's the new moon after the winter solstice. And I have a diagram to show you this, but first let's just go down and read the passages. It says, when the sun and moon occupy the same region of the zodiac together with the asterism of Shravishta, at that time begins the Yuga, which was the 5-year cycle, and the Kṣaṇātic month of Magha, the solar seasonal month called Tapa, the bright fortnight of the Kṣaṇātic month of Magha, and their northern course. So they're talking about the Ayana and also starting the year and the calendar month and the Soli lunar month. So they were aligning both the Soli lunar months, which is new moon to new moon, with the Sora calendar and also the year. And they were measuring these things with the nakshatras, with the asterism Shravishta, which we now call Dhanishta. So below, we see the nakshatras measuring both the northern and southern course at the time of this text. Now, one of the ways that they were able to date the texts was by the portion of sky that the solstices were occurring in. And one thing to realize is that India measured solstices, not equinoxes. They were mainly measuring the northern course and the southern course. This is how you know it's India. More so than, like, for example, in the Greeks, they were talking a lot about the vernal equinox. In India, they were talking about the ayanas. This is why even the name is called ayanamsha, because the ayana, or the solstices, were key to their calendar and their zodiac. So as it says here, when situated at the beginning of Shravishta segment, the sun and moon begins to move north. When they reach the midpoint of Aslesha segment, they begin to move south. So it's essentially saying that the sun begins to move north in Shravishta or Dhanishta, and then when they reach the midpoint of Aslesha, they begin to move south. Now, again, this is showing that the northern course, Uttarayana, is starting in Dhanishta, and the southern course is starting in the middle of Aslesha. Now, in case you don't know, the northern course starts in the middle of Mula, and the southern course starts at the beginning of Ardra, based on precession, because the equinoxes are precessing backwards. But at the time this text was written, it was starting at the beginning of Dhanishta and the middle of Aslesha. This is how we know how old the text is. And this is very typical of Indian writing, particularly the Vedas and older Indian texts. This is how they marked the time. So we know they were tracking the solstices and equinoxes. We know that they understood the difference, and that's how they were doing it at this time. So, and then this, it says 4.5 asterismal segments is one season. This confirms that 6 seasons multiplied by 4.5 nakshatras equals 27 nakshatras. So they were also measuring time as the sun moves through 4.5 nakshatras, that measures the seasons. So they were measuring the sun moving through nakshatras as measuring one season. And this, they were measuring the 5-year yugas by the number of nakshatras transited by the sun in 5 years. In the same way, the total of the asterisms of the sun, which comes around 5 times, is 135. So they were measuring that yuga, that 5-year cycle, by sun nakshatras. So that means that the sun going through 135 nakshatras marked a 5-year yuga. So it's clear in the Vedas, approximately 1200 BC, that the Indians connected the seasons to the solstices and the new moon of that month, and also began the year and yuga at that time. They also measured everything with sidereal space and time. So again, I know this is a little bit dense, so you can go back and listen to this a few times, but here's a diagram that illustrates what I just said. You have the months and the seasons aligned this way, and then you have the new moon and the new year began at the same portion, and the northern and southern courses. Now, they had all the nakshatras in place. They even talked about the tithis, but they weren't really describing zodiac signs back that far yet, but they would later. And again, I'm going to read through a few of these, but just so you can understand that they would take that same sidereal sky and align the nakshatras with the zodiac signs once they started using horoscopic astrology and the 12 zodiac signs. So in India, the zodiac was and is sidereal using the Nirayana chakra, which is the circle without the ayana or the solstice. to measure the movement of objects and other phenomena like the precession of the equinoxes. They were measuring everything with the sidereal sky. Of course, the location of planets, but also things like equinoxes and everything else were measured with the sky that's not moving, or the Nirayana chakra. So the texts reflect this. Now notice, I'll just show you these several texts where you see that the nakshatras define the space. So the space is defined with the nakshatras, and then the zodiac signs are laid on top of it. This is very important. It's not that the planets are in signs. The planets are in nakshatras. That defines the space, and then the zodiac signs lay on top of the nakshatras. So these explicit statements about the sidereal zodiac or the Nirayana chakra are at the beginning of each one of these books, which means that when you're reading those books, they define the zodiac first. Everything later is applied to that calculation. So before any methods are described, they define that space first. So this is in keeping with proper exegesis. First, we need to know how to calculate the chart and find the planets. First, we got to know where they are before we analyze them. So you can see in Brihat Parashara Horasastra, chapter 3, verse 4 through 6, says, those are called grahas that move through the nakshatras in the zodiac. The said zodiac comprises 27 nakshatras beginning from Ashwini. Same area is divided into 12 parts equal to 12 rashis beginning from Mesha. So again, the planets move through nakshatras, and then the same area is divided into 12 portions beginning with Aries at the same spot. But also there's an explicit rule in Parashara to add the ayanamsha portion to the zodiac when calculating a thing called ayana bala, which is one of the components of Shadbala. It says literally add the ayanamsha to the graha to find the bhuja, or the distance to the nearest equinox. So ayana bala is purely a tropical consideration, declaring that planets are stronger based on their proximity to the nearest solstice point. So in this passage, we see the directive to add the ayanamsha to the zodiac, which means to the longitude of the planet, to determine which ayana is present, meaning, of course, the zodiac is sidereal because he just set it up here. But then in order to find the ayana, we need to add the ayanamsha, literally means solstice portion, to the sidereal longitude of the planet. So Brihat Parashara is clearly sidereal text. I'll just read through a couple of these other ones. Brihat Jataka, the same thing. Every astrology book says the same thing. In the celestial chakra, the signs commence with Mesha and Ashwini. They're each formed by 9 padas, or quarters of stars, and govern the following organs of the Kalapurusha. Then he goes on to define the limbs of the Kalapurusha. In a text called Horasara, it says 2 1/4 stars make 1 Rashi. Yeah, and again, 2 1/4 stars or nakshatras make the Rashi. Each of the 12 signs are constituted by 2 1/4 of stars or 9 padas, with Ashwini at the start in Aries and Revati at the end in Pisces. Jatika Parijata, again, 1,000 years later, Kriya or Aries and other zodiacal signs in the heavens consist of 9 quarters of stars reckoning from Ashwini. So again, always this way. The space is defined by the nakshatras, and as you can see, even back in the Vedas, they were defining the space this way. So of course they always did. Now, it's not defined in every one of the texts, but we can assume it's not defined because that was just the common practice. It wasn't always defined, but I've looked at every Vedic astrology book I've ever seen. What you should understand is that in all of these examples, what they're not saying also is that they're not saying Ashwini begins the nakshatras and the rashis begin on the vernal equinox or whatever. And they knew it was possible. This is why they had the directive what it is. You're saying what it is. You're also saying what it's not. And again, this was just common knowledge. This is not advanced astronomy or anything. They knew of the 2 circles, of course, because it was just common knowledge. So every time it's defined, it's clearly nakshatras define the space, and then the rashis align. Surya Siddhanta is also very explicit in several sections. There are 3 sections. One is called the mean motions of planets. It's actually chapter 1. It says the planets moving westward with exceeding velocity, but constantly beaten by the nakshatras fall behind at a rate precisely equal, proceeding each in its own path. By their movement, the revolution is accounted complete at the end of the asterism Revati. 60 seconds make a minute, 60 of these a degree. Of 30 of the latter is composed of sign or Rashi, 12 of these are a revolution. So again, the planets are moving through nakshatras. Surya Siddhanta chapter 2, precise location of planets. Again, the portion of an asterism is 800 minutes of a lunar day or tithi. In like manner, 720, that's actually the tithi. If the longitude of a planet in minutes be divided by the portion of an asterism, the result is its position in asterisms. By means of the daily motion are found the days. So again, we see that the planets' positions are to be located as being in the nakshatras. So again, it says if the longitude of a planet in minutes be divided by the portion of an asterism, the result is its position in asterisms. Asterisms means nakshatras. So it's showing you find the planet by locating its position in the asterism by dividing the portion of the asterism. And then this one, which is the most telling from the Surya Siddhanta, from the chapter of the asterisms, it says, in Taurus, the 17th degree, a planet of which the latitude is a little more than 2 degrees south, will split the wane of Rohini. So we see clearly that the 17th degree of Taurus is said to be in the middle of Rohini. That's just as true now as it was when it was written at least 1,000 years ago. Rohini occupies 10 to 2320 of sidereal Taurus. The point at 17 degrees Taurus would be almost exactly in the middle. It would split the wane of Rohini. So again, this is clearly sidereal zodiac sign directive from the Surya Siddhanta, further nails the nakshatra circle to the sidereal zodiac signs, not tropical signs or vernal equinox. So again, that started later in the 9th century in Persia and then became exported to the West and then started the Western tradition. But you should understand how the sky is laid out. And again, based on the precession, that same point in the sky is now tropical Gemini. That same point that they're talking about 17 degrees splitting the wane of Rohini is now tropical Gemini. So again, in India, they never used that calculation. It was everything is pinned to the nakshatras. So just real quick, the implications of the nakshatra and calendar-based sky. Again, we're used to seeing this nakshatra-based sky. We have Magha and Leo. I'm just using this as an example. Like if we have the moon in Magha nakshatra, sidereal Leo, but it would be tropical Virgo based on the precession of the equinoxes. If you start the zodiac on the vernal equinox, which is measuring the earth going around the sun and the calendar, then they, using that calculation, then Aries starts on that vernal equinox. But again, if you extend that out into this actual sky, that's sidereal Pisces, about 6 degrees, right? And then the precession keeps going back, and we're going to start that age of Aquarius. We've all heard that age of Aquarius. That's because the precession keeps going back, and pretty soon, in a few hundred years, it's going to be in sidereal Aquarius, right? But so, again, we don't do that in Indian astrology because everything is pinned to the sidereal sky where the nakshatras and the rashis are aligned, like we just saw. Ashwini and Aries right here, and that aligns all the other nakshatras with the rashis like we're going to discuss. That includes all of these transitional nakshatras. And again, if you're not using the sidereal rashis, none of the transitional nakshatras matter because the zodiac is now moving all over the place. So again, this is based on the sidereal integrity. But we can see what happens, even a planet in Magha, which is that king sitting on the throne. If you're not using this sidereal zodiac, again, this same place of the king sitting on the throne is now tropical Virgo because of this precessional thing. So again, this is why you don't use the nakshatras. First of all, they don't use them in Western astrology, but this is why that sidereal integrity of the Indian zodiac has always been there. And there's no possibility that they would not do that. Again, we would have a planet in Hasta, which is that earthy, grounded, hands-on part of Virgo, right? It's that part of Virgo where, we get our hands in the dirt and we create that thing that's practical. Well, Hasta is like entirely in tropical Libra, which again, Libra, it's just a whole different energy. These are two examples. We could go through the whole thing, but we're not here to do that. But I just want you to understand the implications of this. It really nails everything, and all of the Indian practices in this sidereal sky. And again, don't forget, they were measuring not just the space, but also time. Back in the Vedas, they were measuring 5-year cycles of the sun moving through nakshatras. So everything is pinned to the sidereal sky. So you should understand this as being fundamental and foundational to everything in Indian astrology, cosmology, and timekeeping even. And of course, they clearly understood the difference between the sky and locating objects in the sky as we're perceiving them from Earth, and the Earth moving around the sun. So just last thing here, all of these calendar months would be the same as those months that we just saw, which was Nabha, Nabhasya, Tapa, Tapasya. Those are the months that are all pinned to this tropical circle. But they had the 6 seasons. I didn't actually go over that diagram, but let me just show you that same circle. I did show you, but this is how they did the timekeeping in the Vedas. It's the same thing. They had these 12 months, Tapa, Tapasya, Madha, Madhava, instead of January, February, and instead of 4 seasons, like we have fall, spring, winter, and summer, they had 6 seasons. So they had 6 seasons pinned to 12 calendar months. We now have that same circle now in the West is this, except they also pin the zodiac signs to that circle, and India doesn't. These are separate circles. You have a zodiac circle and a calendar circle, and we locate planets in the sky, not based on a sky that derives its calculation from the Earth going around the sun. So again, with that being said, these nakshatras that bridge the rashis are really powerful. Once we realize that the nakshatras and rashis are aligned, it becomes crucial to see planets as being in both in both nakshatras and a rashi. And so we only have limited time, so I thought we would examine the 9 nakshatras that bridge the 2 rashis. Again, that happens 9 times. So we see how Kritika bridges both Aries and Taurus. Now, again, Kritika literally means the cutter, and it shows how that fire of purification, which is related to Aries, is embedded and captured by the earth, again, which is symbolized, which is Taurus. So again, one of the great symbols for Kritika is the sacred fire ceremony and the fire pit of consciousness that's also contained in the body. We eat food and the Agni burns it and goes up into our mind and creates our consciousness. But you can also see how Kritika is a perfect symbol between Aries and Taurus in that way, like that fire pit, the fire in the earth. And it's mostly earth, just like the fire pit, just like Kritika is mostly in Taurus. Mrigashira bridges Taurus and Gemini. It's symbolized by a deer, which is a gentle 4-legged animal, like a bull or a cow, Taurus, but it's also a deer, which is fast, curious, and a nimble creature like a human being, or 2 human beings, which is Gemini. So you can see how Mrigashira has both qualities of Taurus and Gemini. It's like a perfect symbol between these 2 rashis. Purnavasu bridges Gemini and Cancer, and it means return of the light. It shows how knowledge from the head, which is Gemini, must sink into the heart if we're to return to the light in our mind and consciousness. So literally, Gemini is where ideas and information must get anchored in the heart. In Cancer, and we see this transitional nakshatra, literally the deity is called Aditi, who is the mother of the Adityas, and it really shows where that knowledge takes form and becomes something that's nurturing and life-giving as Gemini moves into Cancer. And again, if you're not using that sidereal zodiac and that integrity of the rashis and nakshatras, none of this, now all of these are off. So keep that in mind. That's why I started with that first, because it's important to understand the architecture of the sky, not just, well, I believe it's this one or that one. There's a reason the entire zodiac system and cosmology of India is based on this. And of course, the nakshatras bridging these rashis don't make sense otherwise. Now, Uttar Falguni bridges Leo and Virgo, and it shows how the power of Leo must be filtered into many skills and tasks if we're to live a happy, intelligent life. Success in life comes when we can organize the details properly, which is the Virgo. lesson. And Uttar Falguni is ruled by the god Aryaman, which makes for like official contracts, business, instead of the passion of Purva Falguni. It's the official, okay, let's get married in Uttar Falguni and make it official and formal. And it's good for, again, contracts and agreements, so that power of the kingdom becomes an efficient bureaucracy and system. So like a government that is well run, for example. And Uttar Falguni has that quality. Chitra bridges both Virgo and Libra, and it shows how the practical structure of Virgo becomes something we want to share with others and enjoy with them in Libra. And the deity is a celestial architect where we build something useful and enjoyable. The symbol is like a gemstone, which is literally a piece of earth, but it's cut in a very beautiful and faceted way, which is the qualities of Libra. It's very passionate, but also very practical, right? And again, you can see these qualities of Chitra, this architect, to build something tangible and beautiful, to have and to share, very much this bridge between Virgo and Libra. Vishaka bridges Libra and Scorpio and shows the desire and skill to elevate relationships beyond just personal happiness toward more purity and transcendence. And the gods of Indra, which are lightning, and Agni, which is fire, predominate. And this leads us to more emotional courage and personal leadership. So this is where Libra starts becoming less about my personal happiness and more toward transcendence, transformation, and exploring a deeper concept in relationships. And again, this is why this nakshatra is also very motivated and ambitious toward higher worldly things, which is a very important quality of Libra that gets overlooked. It's not just about enjoyment. Libra is about elevating relationships to something that's more transcendent and transformational. And again, Vishaka shows that very clearly. Uttarashada bridges Sagittarius and Capricorn, and it shows how our beliefs and inspirations lead to hard work, determined effort, and authentic spiritual growth. The deities here are the universal gods, or the Vishwadevas. So these are the forces we need to develop spiritually through tangible work and effort. So this shows how that inspiration of Sagittarius must be brought into the realm of, again, hard work and effort in Capricorn. And we need to bring together all of the Vishwadevas, which have to do with time, karma, desire, and all of these universal principles, so that what inspires us now becomes focused work, effort, and commitment in Capricorn. So again, this nakshatra is perfect, and Uttarashada literally means later victory, and builds upon Purva Ashada, which is the early victory, where we nurture and become very devoted to our teachings. That's fully in Sagittarius. But now we need to take that devotion and make a commitment and work hard. And that's where Uttarashada brings the later victory, in between Sagittarius and Capricorn. And then Dhanishta bridges Capricorn and Aquarius, shows how our spiritual values and inner stillness is our highest value and must be shared with the world, seeing ourselves as a universal being, not just an emotionally frail human. That comes to fruition in this nakshatra. So Dhanishta is equal between Capricorn and Aquarius. Again, there's a lot that can be said about all these nakshatras. Let me go through this very quickly, but this is also where Mars is exalted. Dhanishta, literally Dhan means wealth and value. And again, it shows where in Capricorn, we're really working through our emotional stresses and really coming to reckon with time and our limited time. And then once we reckon with that on a personal level, then we want to share that, or we need to share that with the world in a universal way in Aquarius. So Dhanishta bridges that, those two rashis. And then the last one here we have is Purvabhadra, which bridges Aquarius and Pisces. And this is ruled by a deity called Aja Ekpada. Oh, by the way, Dhanishta is ruled by the 8 Vasus, which are, excuse me, they can be broken up into the 5 elements and the 3 gunas. They're like the building blocks into which we create a practical life and value, but then also share it in a higher sense. But Purvabhadra bridges Aquarius and Pisces and shows this lightning strike which descends from heaven and connects us to the other world, bridging the world of culture and society, which is Aquarius, with the other world, Pisces. That's shown in this nakshatra, because even though we love to get together and share with each other in the world, we're a transcendent being. We're not of this world, which is the Pisces lesson. And that lightning strike, which comes down, literally the term, or I'm sorry, the deity Aja Ekapata means one-footed goat or one-footed animal. It's like lightning that strikes in like one spot. And it shows how we get this inspiration, like a lightning strike from beyond, that shows our true nature as being transcendent. Even, ultimately we must transcend even culture, even things like this, where we get together and connect around these beautiful teachings with each other and make the world a better place. Ultimately, we're not of this world. We're a transcendent being. So Purvabhadra bridges those two Rashis as well. And as you see here, I have an image. If you wanted to get more, I have full weekend course on this that I did not long ago. A lot of people attended. So you could click that. That's in the manual as well. But I think that's my time here. I think I just did, that was a half hour, I believe, and that's the time I was allotted. And I hope you benefited from this and it was helpful.
Thank you so much, Sadasiva ji. Such a blessing to have your presentation on the transitional nakshatras and the support of the sidereal integrity and how it plays out on so many different levels. Thank you so much. Eve, Komilla, would either of you like to comment or respond?
Well, I think it was a great job, Sam. Thank you. You have done a real detailed research and you gave us a benefit of the research. And I feel that the transitional nakshatras have not covered so much. So I think you also woke that up in me that I should look at them a little bit more. So thanks very much, Sam.
Well, Komilla ji, I'm honored to have that reflection and very happy to hear that reflection. And yes, I've been researching this quite a bit, especially with the zodiac. I'm finishing a book where I'm going to be bringing this out. But and a lot of it came from diving into these transitional nakshatras and really understanding, this is like amazing. There was so much that could be said. And again, like in the longer courses that I do, I talk about these quite a lot. One thing just very quick that's very interesting is, one that's very funny to me is actually the Mrigashira, the Taurus and the Gemini, because Gemini is the first human Rashi, but it's still a quadruped because it's two humans. We have two quadruped Rashis, Aries and Taurus are four-legged, but then the first human Rashi is still four-legged because it's two people. It's two people. So two people times two legs is four legs. And this deer, which is right in between a Taurus, which is a cow, and then two people, it's two like people running, but it's still a quadruped. It's just, I don't know, it's very interesting to ponder these things. But anyway.
Fascinating. I think the thing is that in Kṣaṇāti's summit is just throwing a seed of thought process for others to explore more, and they can learn from you as well. And if they want to go deeper, then that is something that is a wonderful thing you did, and Kṣaṇāti as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Komilla.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
And I'll put the link one more time here in case anybody missed it. So thank you all.
Excellent. So thank you again, Sadasiva ji. And it's such an honor and pleasure to have one of my favorite teachers here, Komilla Sutton, who's going to discuss Manasha Nakshatra. Namaste, Komilla.
Namaste. Thank you. So I can share the screen.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I was working on multitasking. Thank you, everybody. I just So we are talking on this Nakshatra Summit today with Kṣaṇāti. I always have to learn how to pronounce your name properly, so please excuse me if it's not perfect. Nakshatra, so 2022, and today I'm talking about Manasa Nakshatra. And Manasa is the mind, and I think it's always interesting how the classes, when you do, we are picking separate subjects, but there is some link there. And Sanjay Rath gave a wonderful explanation about how to look at the Bhamsa Nakshatra and the D27, and to look at the deeper meaning of the mind there as well. And I'm going to give you another idea about what to look at it. And today being Sunday, I just want to honor Lord Surya. But before that, this is me, and my website is komilla.com. And I'm actually at a temple here called Mansa Devi. And Mansa Devi is the goddess of the mind. She's actually the sister of Vasuki. And this temple is in Rishikesh. There's one temple, Mansa Devi, also in Chandigarh, where I have a home. But the Rishikesh temple, you have to climb up. And so she's the goddess that helps us to calm our mind down. And there's a lot of people go there in millions, I would say, to worship. And we are coming up to the goddess, the spring Navratri, so the springtime of worship of goddess from 1st of April. So that is very nice. And today being Sunday, I want to honor Lord Surya. I think the Kṣaṇāti did some very nice mantra, Sanjay did, so I'm just adding to that. And I'll just do it 3 times. Om Suryaya Namaha. Om Suryaya Namaha. Om Suryaya Namaha. This photograph is from the place called Swami Malai in Tamil Nadu. And this is actually a hotel. And it was just wonderful that we as astrologers went there, and they had this beautiful Surya idol there, and we covered him with all these malas. So honoring Lord Surya today on this wonderful day. So I just like to let you know about this conference we are having. I'm a co-founder with Andrew Foss of the British Association of Vedic Astrology, and the conference is from 15th to, it's in April 15th to 18th, 23 to 24, 30th April to 2nd May. All the details are on bhava.org. It's wonderful. Sanjay is the chief speaker there, Sanjay Rath. And we also have number of international speakers. Dr. Charak will be there, Vinay Aditya is there, Andrew, myself. It's 27 lectures, so I think it's very appropriate that and the theme is career and finances. But Bhava has been promoting Jyotish for over 25 years. Our conferences have been, and fortunately, because of the online program, you can watch it wherever you are, and you're also able to download the lectures. If you suppose you miss it, you're going to get a very good backup support as well. So that is a conference. It's based in London. Usually Sanjay comes there. We have wonderful time, but since COVID, we are all stuck here. But I think online has been a wonderful option for us. And then, talking about nakshatras, I have a book on nakshatras. You can look it up anywhere it's available. These are my books that you can have a look at it. So let us get to the topic. And Kṣaṇāti, if you can remind me when I'm sort of towards the end of it, and so that I don't overrun my allotted time. So as I was talking even with Sam Sadashiva also, that, you know, in these summits, we are sowing a seed for you to research further. And obviously we are not able to just talk a lot, but I try to edit my thought process and put all the key points there so that you are understanding. And I feel that of all the nakshatras, the Manasa nakshatra is very important. And Manasa nakshatra is the 25th nakshatra from the moon and the lagna. Manas means the mind, gives a deeper understanding and further clues as to how the mind works. Mind can be destructive, therefore this may not be the positive nakshatra. It needs to be examined carefully. I feel this is a very key aspect for all of you to look at the 25th nakshatra as well. And it is studied from the moon. We know moon represents the mind. But as you think, okay, why not look at the moon nakshatra itself to show the mind? So just like Sanjay was talking about the Bhamsha chart, the Nakshatramsha chart, that you look at something else. The 25th nakshatra has some extra secret knowledge of how the mind actually works and maybe what are the issues that we bring about our thought process. And the Lagna, I highlighted it because people ask why from the Lagna. Lagna is the analytical mind. Mercury, Jupiter get Digbala in the Lagna, showing mind and wisdom are strong. First house is the head where the brain dwells. So therefore, you can look at it from both aspects. And basically the thing with the Manasa nakshatra, there are two major ways to analyze it. One is in your natal chart. Study the type of nakshatra that rules Manasa nakshatra and if there are any planets placed there. Malefic planets will be challenging, can bring anger, anxiety, depression, wrong type of thinking. And remember that Jyotish is highlighting the issues. They're important that if you have a difficult aspect with your Manasa nakshatra, that you're thinking about how to improve it, not to just get stuck in that situation. Then Manasa nakshatra by transit, 25th transit of malefic planets through Manasa nakshatra is studied. It can be tough on the mind and not our thinking. Manasa nakshatra transit in the 25th nakshatra from the moon is the start of Saresati, disturbs the mind, and we can make mistakes in thinking. So when you're analyzing Saresati, you must look at Saturn's transit through the 25th nakshatra. Otherwise, we are looking at transits of the malefics. Benefics are okay, they are calming us down and leading, and also the slower moving planets. You could look at Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, Mars. So at present, Saturn is transiting in Dhanishta nakshatra and Rahu is in Kritika and Ketu is in Vishakha. So you see, you have to look at, count the 25th nakshatra. So just to tell you how to count your 25th nakshatra. So for example, if your moon is in Bharani nakshatra, you go backwards rather than going forwards to try count 20. So from Bharani, the 25th nakshatra, 27th nakshatra is Ashwini, 26th nakshatra is Revati, and 25th nakshatra is Uttara Bhadrapada. So that means you are counting your 25th nakshatras and are easy to count. So they are just by moving backwards. So there are 7 types of thinking reflected by the qualities of the nakshatra ruling Manasa nakshatra, as the nakshatras are divided into 7 groups. Actually, what happens is that we study these groups mostly in Bahurat and we don't think that they have any impact on us. But nakshatras have some basic qualities that are studied. Each nakshatra can have positive, negative qualities as well. We must learn to develop them in a constructive way. I think this is really the main thing that I'm always encouraging, that we should not think that if something is difficult, it is going to remain difficult. Everything has a positive way to use it. And when you see the charts of the great swamis, you see that they also have sometimes very difficult Manasa nakshatra. But by doing the correct spiritual procedures and leading the correct type of life, then that energy is used in a totally different way. So this is what you have to think about it. So these thinking that they are fixed nakshatras: Uttara Phalguni, Uttara Ashada, Uttara Bhadrapada, Rohini. Sthira nakshatras being Manasa can give steady thinking, gives calmness and equilibrium. However, the negative part of it is due to influence of malefics in Manasa. This can make one stubborn, blocked to expand. Without even influence also, fixed nakshatras can be very stubborn. This is what I think. Nobody can change my thinking. And of course, if malefics are added to it, it will add further essence. Then Charchara, movable nakshatras: Swati, Punarvasu, Shravana, Dhanishta, Shatabhishak, always thinking what to do next, planning, mentally active. Negative, living in the future, worrying you're not doing enough, overdoing things. I think Charchara is a major modern day problem, is overdoing too much. So we have to be conscious of that we are not overdoing things. Then Ugra Kruda, these are aggressive and cruel nakshatras. Purva Phalguni, Purva Ashada, Purva Bhadrapada, Bharani, Magha. Aggressive thinking, impulsive, quick to anger, frustration, selfish. But you can also have a positive influence, either due to benefic influence or benefic use of this energy. Is to ability to control those impulses, to understand that this is sometimes your weakness, and therefore let me do it in the right way. Let me try to manage it. So I feel that is a very important factor there. Mishra Sadharan, mixed ordinary, Vishakha Kritika, mixed nature can be angry, calm, usually positive, negative thinking, both, you know, that we need to study the influence of the nakshatra and its ruler. Now, you can also study further, which I didn't put it in here, how the ruler of the nakshatra is doing in your chart as well, to of the Manasa nakshatra is doing, to kind of understand a little bit more. Then Shipra Laghu, short and dynamic, Hasta, Ashwini, Pushya, Abhijit, dynamic thinking, always making positive decisions, will usually show good ideas and thoughts, whereas if you have negative influence, you can sometimes not trust yourself, sometimes it shows a block of ideas, or, you know, thinking about wrong type of ideas, as this is a nakshatra which is very dynamic in thinking. Then Mridu Metra nakshatras, soft and friendly. Now these are actually the description of the nakshatras. Mridu is soft and friendly is Metra. Mrigasira, Revati, Chitra, Anuradha, soft and friendly nature, soft, kind, mind is calm. Negative due to influences, too soft, too emotional, too scared, unsettled mind, you know. Then Tikshana, Daruna, sharp and challenging, Mula, Jeshta, Ardhara, Ashlesha. This shows sharp thinking, always challenging yourself, feeling dissatisfied, destructive, angry, positive due to benefic influence, transformative, fearless, deep thinking, connected to spiritual aspects. Actually, any of these nakshatras, if you are using that energy properly, you are not getting into the challenging aspects of it, but you are going more into transformative energy. So they give you that ability to work with that. So here I have Swami Shivananda's chart. And so the two things to look at his chart is that he has two very complicated nakshatras. And Swami Shivananda, if you don't know, he was one of the great gurus of India. He has an ashram in Rishikesh. He has written hundreds of books, thousands of leaflets, lectures, talks, everything's available free to download if you look at Swami Shivananda. This is not the ashram here in USA and everywhere. That is created by one of his students in his guru's name. But this is Swami Shivananda, great personality. And you can see right away some problems here in his chart, but that's not the life he led. Saturn, Mars, Rahu, and in the ascendant Lagna, that could be quite destructive anyway. But we are not studying his chart there, but you see the Lagna is Cancer and moon 23 degrees 39, that is Ashlesha Nakshatra, and moon is Bharani. So both these Lagna Nakshatra and Moon Nakshatra, they are fierce nakshatras. So I made the list for him that his moon is in Bharani, but his Manasa is Uttarabhadra, which is a Sthira Nakshatra. So Sthira is fixed, that moon is giving that quality, strong quality to him, and, consistent, regular, doing things that are there. And then Ashlesha Nakshatra, his Lagna is in Ashlesha, and Manasa is Ardhara. So this is kind of interesting that both Ashlesha and Ardhara fierce nakshatras, and Daruna Tikshana. However, Ardhara can also destroy ignorance. It can destroy negativity. It can have anger issues, because Ardhara is quite angry if you have Ardhara as a Manasa Nakshatra. But as a Swami, as somebody totally immersed in a spiritual lifestyle, then these things were not bothering him as much as it would bother somebody who has to live in the world, corporate world, daily life. Then they need to do those extra bits to support themselves. And in contrast, so Swami Shivananda, despite having challenging nakshatras, he purified through path of yoga, devotion to helping others, karma yoga. That was his life. He was a doctor. He was treating people all the time. He was looking after, he was doing selfless service. Path of yoga is not just doing the asana practice, not just doing way more. He channeled his fierceness to the right direction. So, fierceness is not negative. It's just if you channel it in the wrong direction, that is the problem. And when Swamiji died, all the president, the Prime Minister of India, they all came to, they all used to visit him before as well, but they came. There was a stamp issued in his name. He was a big honored person in the 60s when he passed away. So now we have the Manasa Nakshatra of somebody with more difficult issues. This is the chart of Bill Cosby. I forgot to put his birth data here. But here what you can see is his moon is in Purva Phalguni Nakshatra. So remember, of the nakshatras, Purva Phalguni itself is also fierce. And if we count backwards from Purva Phalguni, the 27th nakshatra will be Magha, 26th will be Ashlesha, 25th will be Pushya. From his lagna is Revati. So you count backwards. 27th from Revati will be Uttara Bhadrapada. 26th will be Pushya, sorry, 26, not Pushya, sorry, Purva Bhadrapada, and 26th, sorry, I've got it wrong. Uttarabhadra, Purvabhadra, and Shatabhishak. So, so Bill Cosby, both positive nakshatras showing high thinking, yet does not seem to be way his thought process was used. Here we have Moon Purva Phalguni, Pushya Nakshatra, Shipa Laghu. And Lagna is Revati, Shatabhishak, which is Chara. However, Shatabhishak is 1,000 healers, 1,000 demons. So sometimes the demonic personality is possible if you allow those thoughts process to go. And Bill Cosby was convicted and spent years in prison. Then he's been released now again. You know, obviously there are some issues there that we can think about his thought process, his Manasa Nakshatra, that is difficult. So the Lagna Manasa is Shatabhishak, which is Charchara, active. Rahu is the Lord and is debilitated in Scorpio. Scorpio may have emphasized sexuality in his mind and created dissatisfaction. Also, Rahu is always wanting more and more. So that dissatisfaction in that area of life. So let's just look at his chart that from the Lagna, Rahu is the lord of the Shatabhishak, and Rahu is not just debilitated, it's in the 9th house, which is called Marana Karaka Sthana. It's a very difficult position for Rahu, where you get the wrong advice and the wrong thinking, wrong guidance. So whether you think that gurus were guiding him or his own inner guidance, and then Rahu being the lord of the Manasa from the Lagna. And from the moon, his Manasa is Pushya. Lord Saturn is in the Lagna. It's an 8th from the Lagna, sorry, not Saturn is in the Lagna, 8th from the moon, and 8th house is secret weakness and connected to sexuality. Ketu transit was exact on Saturn in July 2015 when sexual allegations resurfaced. These sexual allegations were always following him around. And here we see again that from the moon, Saturn is in the 8th house. And 8th house position from the moon, but Saturn in the Lagna is also a Marana Karaka Sthana. These Marana Karaka Sthanas are very interesting and maybe separate aspect of study. But here we see that both the lords of his nakshatras, Manasa nakshatras, are in Marana Karaka Sthana. That means they are in a serious dysfunctional state. And of course, you know, one of the worst things you can have is celebrity. Because in celebrity, you know, you get all people just appreciating you all the time and saying, oh, you're wonderful, you're great, you're fabulous. And it is very easy to start believing your publicity, that I'm so great and I can do anything and I can get away with it. So you see that in actually Swami Shivananda, apparently if people praised him too much, he used to be very upset because he didn't like it. He said, I'm a servant, I'm going to do the right thing. Whereas, you know, fame, celebrity, such a great success, and there are many things in the chart that give success as well. But we are talking about Manasa Nakshatra for Bill Cosby. So you can see that both the lords, Rahu is debilitated, Saturn is 8th from the moon, and it is also, you know, both of them are in Marana Karaka Sthana. That means my reading of Marana Karaka Sthana is that when planets are placed there, they get stuck in a way, you know, that you are not able to do anything about them. So that is where some guidance, right kind of guidance, and you have to first want to have that, you know, to be dealing with that. So then the last aspect of today's class, I want to talk about transit to Manasa Nakshatra. So when you're having a transit to Manasa Nakshatra, this can give stress and worry. So right now, you know, Manasa Nakshatra transits for Saturn. Saturn is in Dhanishta. So he's Manasa for Uttara Bhadrapada. So if your moon or ascendant is in Uttara Bhadrapada, then Saturn is transiting the Manasa Nakshatra. If you take for Rahu, Rahu's Manasa, Rahu is in Kritika, so he's Manasa for Ardhara Nakshatra. So if you have got moon or ascendant in Ardhara, then Rahu is creating anxiety and worry. Ketu is in Vishakha, and Vishakha is Manasa, I think, for Mula Nakshatra. Let me go backwards. Yes, for Mula Nakshatra. So that means that if you are having the transits, and especially for Rahu Ketu, also look at where the eclipses are falling. The transit of Saturn to 25th from the moon is the start of Saresati. What happens is that when Saturn goes into the 25th nakshatra from the moon, your mind starts becoming restless. It becomes agitated. It starts thinking, oh, life is not okay. I should be doing something. I'm very unhappy. And it is the time where you have to be most cautious, because that is the time where you can make mistakes. You can change your home, change your jobs, make yourself insecure, create problems for yourself because the mind is troubled. So if you focus on that, so then that is important. And sometimes, you know, that knowledge is key as well. So we look at a chart here of Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates has a multiple problem issue in his chart. Firstly, that you see that he's Gemini Lagna, and Saturn in Capricorn means it's Ashtama Shani, 8th transit from Saturn. And, you know, his exact 22 degrees 59 of Capricorn, that would be the exact degree. Now, during the 8th house transit of Saturn, he has divorced, he has been implicated, not implicated, but his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the, you know, the big sexual predator who died in prison, has been revealed, and it has spoiled his reputation. But, you know, Dhanishta also is there in, his moon is Uttara Bhadrapada. So right now, Saturn has moved into Dhanishta. That means right now is a very vulnerable time for Bill Gates, because 8th house Saturn and Manasa Nakshatra transit. Now, what you see in Bill Gates' chart is that if you are planning Saresati, you would think, oh yeah, Saturn going in Aquarius is the start of Saresati. And then going into Aries is the end. But this starting point, if you look at the nakshatra divisions, I've written about it in my book as well on nakshatras, and you can study it more. But if you look at this aspect here, that at this stage, it's extreme vulnerability. And if he were advising from me, I would have said to him, be very cautious and careful, and, you know, not to make any unnecessary mistakes. But, you know, he's had to give a big alimony, and then the reputation, and, you know, all that thing, it's not money itself, it is other things that are there. So the Manasa transit is very important, especially with the Sade which is the 25th from the moon. So Bill Gates, moon in Uttarabhadra, Manasa Nakshatra is Dhanishta. So, you know, Dhanishta Nakshatra is a thinker, ideas, wealthy in mind. He may be thinking wealth all the time. And Saturn throughout 2022 is in Dhanishta. He goes into Shatabhishak in early, sometimes in, I think sometime in the beginning of 23, maybe it's March, because it has to go 6 degrees 40. So this is a very crucial time for him. Thank you very much. So yes, so the main thing is that we must think about remedies, because without remedies, it's, you know, you need to think about what to do with the difficult transits, difficult issues in the chart. So yogic disciplines, I think those are most important. It's a whole process that you can develop over time, and going to some good, you know, ashrams or good areas. Nowadays, everything is online. So there's no excuse to listen to some yogic philosophy, some ideas, thinking. Then mantra chanting. Kṣaṇāti did beautiful mantra chanting, starting. Positive thinking. I know at the Shivananda Swami Sita, she does classes online on positive thinking. You may be able to download as well. There may be other teachers doing it as well. Then developing the 6 wealths instead of 6 obstacles, 6 enemies of mankind. They are connected to our 6th house. This is a technique that is part of sadhana chatushtaya. So, you know, number of kind of important aspects to do. And then some things that you can do yourself and think about what you can do is lifestyle choices. You know, keep your lifestyle simple. Don't complicate it. I have a favorite word, and I say edit your life. At least you have to have some time thinking what is superfluous, what doesn't matter, what are the products you don't need. Simplify your life. Then regular habits, eating, sleeping, have some kind of routine, because be like the sun. The sun has a sunrise, a midday, a sunset. Next year, this date, sun will be exactly in the same position. So we should follow the sun a bit, but regularize our habits. I'm not expecting everybody to suddenly become perfect, but this is important. Pay special attention to diet. I think diet and moon are interlinked. So natural, seasonal, not too spicy food, plant-based as much as possible. Avoid chopping and changing your life. Home, career, you know, be careful about, you know, not all the time wanting excitement from life. I know sometimes little bit excitement is good, but all these things affect the mind and will aggravate that manasa position for you. And travel wisely, which I mean is that you want to, these days, of course, we are all not traveling a lot. At least I'm a big traveler myself, but, you know, go important events, things, don't be all the time traveling, so that you are not necessarily doing the best for yourself. So thank you very much, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to all of you. And here I am with Sage Agastya. This is at one of the temples on Muruga temple, beautiful, you know, very profound Sage Agastya. So I want to thank you, and thank you, Kṣaṇāti, for inviting me here.
Namaste. Thank you, Komilla ji. What a fantastic elaboration on Manasa Nakshatra. To include the remedies is so supportive and helpful for everyone as they dive into discovering their own relationship with their Manasa Nakshatra. Eve or Sam, would either of you like to comment or respond to the presentation?
I'll respond that it was fantastic. Thank you so much, Komilla ji. That was really good.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And yeah, just that I had never really thought of it myself or really considered that. And I also especially really always love revisiting those qualities of the nakshatras, those soft and Tikshna, and I always love the we're all a mixture of the
Fierce energy.
I love the the Mrigashira, this like I have several Mrigashira and then Revati, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so soft. And then you get to like Ardra, and I'm like, okay, Vishaka, so we all can see ourselves. There's different aspects, and people watching can look at the different facets of your personality, because we're all a mixture of that soft and that sharp and dreadful and all of those adjectives. So it was really great to just revisit those things. One real quick thing I wanted to say, because there's a lot of comments in the chat about Abhijit and whatnot. You want to just understand really quick that the nakshatra portions are really, they're in essence 27 portions of space, like I laid out in my presentation. They're really 27 portions of space, and then there's one section within the 27 portions of those equal portions of space. There's that one section, the 28th, which just focuses on that one portion. At the end of Uttarashada
And this
and the
is
beginning of Shraddha.
overlaps also. They overlap.
Yeah, it overlaps. It's
Yeah.
it's not fit in there somewhere else. Yeah. So I just wanted to say that.
Well,
as
I didn't look at the comments, but thank you, Sam, for clarifying that.
It was just in general. It wasn't really
Yeah.
about your presentation. It was just in general about, there's a lot of what about Abhijit? What about Abhijit? That's what it is. It's not fit in to an extra portion. It's just within that. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. But fantastic job.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just want to say something about Sam and Sanjay, both S's, but I knew Sam from so many years, young. Sam, I've known you, I don't know how many years. So I always think of you like a young boy, even though you're so mature and become such a serious teacher. That is just so wonderful to see that. And Sanjay also, I suppose when you have so many gray hair, you have done a lot of people. So, and it's so nice, Eve, to see you as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Komilla. I'm a little older than Sanjay.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Talked to me in our chat, actually. I didn't know that, Sam.
I know. I got it's all the Gemini and all the Mrigashira.
I don't know, Sam. I think I met you not 2000 or 25 years ago at the ashram, Shivananda ashram. And so you were very young at that time.
I was probably older than I looked, but I looked like when I was about 40, I looked like I was about 20. So I've always had the youthful look. But thank you. It's wonderful to hear that. And yeah, I really treasure our connection throughout the years as well, Komilla. It's just beautiful. So thank you for saying that.
I'm loving the love, everybody.
Love fest.
The Bhakti Fest going on here.
And the fact that your mom likes me makes it all the best. And I got to meet her.
Yes.
Well, let us proceed. I'm very excited to invite my sister and friend, Eve Mendoza, to discuss Trimurti activity in Nakshatras. Namaste, Eve.
Thank you, all of you. Would I be able to share my screen, Sam? Sorry, Kṣaṇāti.
Please, go ahead.
How I do that. And I kind of just wanted to start, of course, I always start with just a small mantra. Om Ganganapataye Namah. Om Aim Saraswatye Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. So guys, I did see the questions also about Abhijit, and I just thought the presentations here were just absolutely fantastic. Everyone's so distinct and unique, and they only have 30 minutes, guys. So I saw some of the questions. There's no way our teachers could have answered every single one of your questions. So I encourage you to follow up with them. if you have more. But with Abhijit, it's often it's used in Muhurt very commonly, but it's also used in special dashas, special nakshatra yogas, like if you use Ashtotri nakshatra dasha, you will use Abhijit, okay? So like Shani will become the Dashapati, the Dasha Lord of Abhijit. So most of the time, I'd like to say that Sam is absolutely correct. If you start throwing in Abhijit, you may confuse yourself when it comes to some of these other chakras. So Jyotish is a perfect machine. It's like it's a perfect living being. We're looking at the body of Kal Purush, and each one of his organs, each one of his features are different. And each one of these attributes of Jyotish are therefore different. One may be a heartbeat, one may be the digestive system, one may be the brain, one may be the hand that reaches out and grabs something, you know? So oftentimes, and I've mentioned this before, we do tend to overcompensate in the nakshatra dashas with the Rashis and the Rashi Lord. Okay, so Parashara says that there are the nakshatra dashas are according to nakshatra. We also have graha dashas. We have all kinds of different dashas. We have all kinds of different chakras. Now, what I'll be talking about today is the Trimurti activity of each nakshatra. And I have a few little tricks and that you can easily, do fast in your mind for Vimshodri Dasha. I want to make this so clear, guys. I lay this at your feet. I consider myself your sister on in a path of devotion. I really do not put myself in a place of authority, as many of you know if you've listened to me. I might be, somewhat of an overly devoted researcher, really, if you want to give me any kind of title. But as a sister on the path, I do want to encourage a fluidity of mind instead of listening to some of these talks and expecting to get every single detail under your control, right now. Allow yourself to get to taste the ras, the flavor. Taste this. I'm really going to attempt to saturate you in the flavor of some of these nakshatras, as opposed to just throwing details at your mind, because that can lead to serious rigidity. And then your learning process is going to be stunted, just like growth can be stunted. Growth is produced by Shakti. The earth receives the seed. The seed is nothing without the earth, right? The seed goes into the earth, and that Shakti gives the beautiful ability of that seed to grow into a full tree. The whole tree is in the seed, but it requires the soil to grow, or water. Water can also grow things. So let's just here with this Trimurti principle, I'm not professing to give you some kind of rigid tool. What I'm hoping to do is to illumine and allow you to see or witness, because some knowledge is to be witnessed, not to be heard. It is to be seen. Like Devi Mahatmyam, we say that is a witnessed knowledge, or those mantras were witnessed. They were not spoken. The whole thing was seen. So it comes through Agni Tattva, right? And then we can feel things as well, which comes through Jal, well, through Vayu and Jal. But so with the qualities of each nakshatra, we have gunas, we have tattvas. So we have elements, we have various, like Komilla ji was highlighting. We have fixed nakshatras, we have soft nakshatras, all of this. Now in Vimshodri Dasha, each one of the Dasha lords, and I say Dasha lord, not Nakshatra lord, I'm trying to get us to see here a little bit of the mechanics while remaining fluid, but these are dasha lords. They do not rule the nakshatra, okay? They are vimshottari dasha lords, to be specific. So each one has a Trimurti activity for reading the karma palam, the fruit of the karma that will happen in that dasha. And each graha has a special responsibility over over 3 of the nakshatras. So each in Vimshottari, right? Each nakshatra is given, each graha is given 3 nakshatras. Now, when we think of the Trimurti, I would like to adjust our minds again to a fluidity and go a little deeper. If we could just drop below the surface of the waves, not be so rigid about Brahma being creative, Vishnu being preserving, and Shiva being destructive, or Mahesh being the destroyer. Because if we do it, if we approach it that way, you're going to miss the root of the activity. And some of these nakshatras will not make sense to you. You will be riding on the waves and you'll be going, why is Mula, who is ruled by Nriti, a Brahma Trimurti nakshatra? Why its power is to crush and destroy. Its Shakti literally has to do with destroying, and the desire of Mula is to get to the root or the origin of creation. That gives you the secret right there. Brahma is about the origin. I'm not saying he was the first Devata. I'm not going into any kind of sectarianism of Vaishnava or Shaiva or any of that. I'm simply stating that you will find out, you will discover that the grahas responsible for the Brahma Trimurti nakshatras in Vimshottari dasha have something to do with origin. Even Brahma himself is at the heart of one of them, Rohini. Okay, so let's dissolve the word creator or creation, because it does often imply in our minds like artistic talent, or I'll hear people say this, they'll say, oh, well, if it's Brahma Trimurti, shouldn't I be creative? I am going to dismantle that right now, because it will not be useful to you to think this way. Now we have to bring in the Navamsha here too, guys. And this is a much longer topic. I'm actually going to be teaching an extensive course on this principle. I'm starting with only the Brahma Trimurti nakshatras in the Vimshottari dasha specifically. I will not be covering any other dasha because those lords do not apply to any other dasha once again. So we'd have to do it in sections. So there's, of course, this is such limited time, we will not be able to cover all of this. So I want to give you a flavor once again, okay? So the Navamsha is going to be relevant here because we are reading Karma Palam, and there's little tricks you can do that you can see that the ancient rishis were playing with numbers a lot. And we often want to attribute everything this deep meaning or deep purpose. And sometimes they were just doing this for quicker memory. And if you notice, everything will go back to 369, or they will have things in a numeric sequence. So you're going to see me doing some of that. It's simply for those of you who catch on to numbers the way that I do, it will make it quicker, like I can do someone's Navamsha in my head. You know, if I just know the nakshatras and the pada, I've got the Navamsha, I've got this, I've got that, and I can kind of just talk to them about it. I don't have to see a program or anything like that. So I want to sink into the flavor of the nakshatras with a really obvious chart. All of you can find this chart online. His name is Vincent Price. He is a very famous actor. I'm very respectful. I don't like to do the charts of the living, and I do realize that Vincent Price has family living. I will not get into any scandals. I've never witnessed any scandal with anyone, so I don't like speaking about it unless I personally witnessed it. Now, Vincent Price is brilliant. He is known for saying that he loved playing the role of the villain, and he was always a very noble villain. This is just to look at his chart. He has a huge cluster in Bharani, okay? Now, if you were just looking at Rashi's Aries, you're not going to pick up who this person was perfect at playing. And this is how these nakshatras give the ras, they give the flavor, the distinction of life. Okay, so it's not Ashwini, it's not Kritika, it is Yama himself. You know, he's personifying the Lord of those who have passed on. Now, interestingly enough, Bharani is a Vishnu Trimurti nakshatra, not Shiva. And this is why it's important to follow me here with this, okay? So I have the power of the Shakti here, the Shakti of the nakshatra here. I have the desire. So Yama desires, may I win the lordship of the ancestors. And these are from the Brahmanas, by the way, guys. This is where I'm getting this. So lordship of the ancestors, Yama, it's the seat of Yama, okay? And here's his chart. Just to show you quickly, big cluster in Bharani, huge cluster in Bharani, including the Atma Karaka. And if you look here, you know, they're all spread out. So those of you, this is how useful this Trimurti activity will be, along with Tattva and Dashas, like reading unique karma palam or fruit, because this looks like a big cluster here. But in the Navamsha, these guys are all doing very different things. So those of you who have a big cluster of grahas, unless they're in the same nakshatra, it's not what it seems like when it delivers the fruit. And if they're in the same pada, that really makes a big impact. So you can see here, he's actually got them quite spread out through every tattva of the Vishnu Trimurti section of the Navamsha. So we've got from Aries to Cancer will always be Brahma Trimurti. A lot of these guys that are very successful will have a Matya Karka in the Brahma Trimurti portion of the Navamsha. Okay, you're going to see a lot of patterns like this when you start diving into this. So Brahma Trimurti is always going to be Aries to Cancer. No, in Vimshottari Dasha, no other nakshatra can fall in that portion of the Navamsha. Vishnu Trimurti is always going to be in Leo to Scorpio. The two big kings are there as well. So you have to think of what Vishnu does with his work, his actual work. So we have Yama in there, we have Indra in there, two big kings. Okay, so Indra ends it with Jeshta, and you know, we have Magha, the ancestors. I mean, through the, you know, that cuts it off, and then Purva Falguni, well, we'll get to that. I'm going to lose you guys. So just think Leo to Scorpio for Vishnu Trimurti. Okay, then for Shiva, naturally, it's the final four. Okay, it's the final four. It's Dhanu to Meena. And this is something I'm going through the flavor of the nakshatras again in a kind of entertaining, funny way. Let's just stay fluid, just kind of a way that can impact you. Sri Devi, brilliant actress of Bollywood. Amrish Puri, who I love, he's always also playing a kind of archetypal villain, and many times like a Shaiva villain, Shiva. He was very commonly, you know, kind of a sorcerer, being, you know, Rudra, personifying Rudra, has a huge cluster in Rudra, in Ardra, okay, huge cluster of planets. Sri Devi has a similar thing on her Lagna in Ashlesha. And she's like, one of the most brilliant films is a film called Nagini, or, you know, they're in it together. It's very interesting, or Nagan. So yeah, so these flavors, like this wouldn't happen with Punarvasu. Okay, it's in Cancer, it's still in the sign Cancer, but this flavor, this distinction, okay, will not come out. Just like Mrigashira, this distinction of Ardra or Rudra is not going to come out as much. So even though these people are just playing roles, the reason we receive their roles so powerfully, the reason why the water mingles with our water, the water of their mind mingles with the water of our mind so well and has such an impact, is because they have this in their field, their field of consciousness. Okay, so it's a very, you'll see this over and over. People get casted even for these things. So we're just going to take on one of the Brahma Trimurti Nakshatras for Vimshottari Dasha. We're going to take on Magha. Now, whereas Bharani is Yama, Yama's the Lord of the world of the ancestors. We call it death, but you know, this fear and darkness and heaviness, this is really just showing us how much we're out of touch with life. Okay, life is full of change, it's full of transformation, and every part of it is beautiful. Age is every bit as beautiful as youth. We're losing a lot of that, you know, in our civilization. So many cultures respect the ancestors. Now, Magha, what I don't hear about it a lot, and I hear a lot about the throne, but it is actually desirous of attaining the respect or to flourish in the world of the Pitris, the ancestors. And the Shakti of this nakshatra is actually to leave the body. That is actually the actual Shakti of Magha, is to leave the body. Okay, so I'm going to show you numerous charts of channelers, okay, mediums. This is a Brahma Trimurti Nakshatra. These aren't artists, these aren't musicians, they're not architects, they're not building things. So human beings are we tend to be a bit self-obsessed and on the surface. So we have to drop down to go, who is Brahma? He's stemming out of the navel of Vishnu. He's our origin. He is us. We are the dream of Brahma. So the world of the ancestors, I mean, look at genetics. You know, Brahma is the Lord of the Manus, the fathers, the founding fathers of civilization. The rishis, many of them are his manasa, his sons of his mind. Okay, so like Ketu, moon, and guru. So it's Ketu, Chandra, guru. Ketu, moon, and Jupiter that rule the Brahma Trimurti nakshatras or activate them for Vimshottari Dasha. Ketu is genetics, moon is Janma, birth, and guru is called Jiva. It's Jiva, life. So these nakshatras are all very distinct with the procreative process, not the desire so much for procreation, okay? That actually comes in a different place. But just the actual ability to access the world of the ancestors, the whole process of reincarnation, all of that, the elements of creation, like we have Punarvasu, which is the fabric of existence. Okay, all of these things are under the Brahma Trimurti nakshatras. So I have here just a little thing you guys can screenshot, and down here is just for fun. It is nothing profound, but these guys were playing with numbers all the time that ended up equaling equivalents to 369. You will find it everywhere. It almost looks random the way that they are assigning the nakshatras. You must start with Ashwini, by the way. And I love that Sam highlighted that from Brihat or Shastra, because a lot of people will say, oh, Kritika is the starting point. Yes, that is a different thing. But when you're counting the numbers of the nakshatras, you must count from Ashwini as number one, or you'll mess up some of these chakras that work this way. So, so in the Vimshottari Dasha, you know, Ketu always equals 1. He's first. He's always going to equal the 1. So you can easily do the math in your head. If you're like me, I can always do this. So 1 plus 9 is 10. So it's going to reduce to a 1, right? So just reduce all of these numbers down. And so Shukra is always going to be number 2. Surya is always going to be number 3. Okay, like that. They're always going to reduce down. It almost looks random until you start playing with everything. And if you have access to the Navgraha yantras, you'll see that each column adds up to 369, one of the 369. And then if you add all of the digits together, it would always equal 9. They were doing this all over the place, okay? So I'm just showing you, they even did it here. Okay, so I'm not telling you this is profound. I'm just telling you it's a pattern. And for those of you who have ascent and can follow this, you know, there's a reason why Nikola Tesla said that 369 is, it's at the core of creation. And these guys, it looks like random. Once again, not random. I don't think it's random. Okay, so we have Cairo. I forgot to put these guys' names. You can find them. This is Cairo, famous palm reader. What a lot of people don't know about him is that he channeled. Okay, he was a big time channeler. He would see up to, I mean, was it 20 clients a day in Hollywood? And he was a clairvoyant. I know he is known for astrology and this and that, but if you actually read about him, he had spirits of people coming through him. Once again, a Matya and a Brahma Trimurti Nakshatra. And specifically, you know, we see here the Magha moon, the Pitris, okay? The desire to connect with the world of the Pitris, and sometimes it's more than a desire, it actually happens. Now, this is his Navamsha, by the way. I'm showing you what it looks like in the Navamsha, because the Brahma Trimurti is always going to fall here. And one interesting thing you're going to see with each one of these channelers is they all at least have 3 grahas in the Brahma Trimurti. I'm giving you guys, these things seem so simple, but when it comes, we're reading Karma Palam, the fruits of karma, right? So I want to know what's the actual produce, what's the actual fruit that's going to come out of this. So Shani he's witnessing as well. Agni Tattva is always about witnessing. You can say all these other personality things. I'm not so impressed with personality. I think it's just changes based on a person's life circumstance. But what is the actual Tattva doing? Agni is sight. Okay. So I'm not even looking at that as Nietzsche. I know a lot of people will, and I'm sure it created problems. I mean, it did harm his longevity, let's say. And Shani is Ayush Karaka. He worked himself to death. When we don't have a good Shani, so-called good Shani, we say yes to too much. Okay, Shani says no. He meters things, measures things. He actually is okay going slow. It's very slow. He reserves prana. He doesn't want to give out too much prana. So when he's in Agni Tattva, Agni eats all the prana. He just burns it, burns it. And this guy, he didn't stop working all day. So you could easily say something like that is going to hurt Ayush, longevity. But it also bridged him to the other side, and he was channeling the ancestors. Another channeler, I'm not into whether these guys were good or not, or whether they're controversial or not. It's just the fact that that is what she did, okay?
Eve, just quickly, just about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, I don't have long. So I can run through these guys. This is Madame Blavatsky. Is it Helena? Is her name? Helena Blavatsky. So you can look her up too. I'm sorry I didn't put the names. Navamsha, again, Brahma Trimurti, very heavily amplified. So was she an artist? No. Not really. She's a writer, things like that. We have to think about that with Vak Devi. Think of the Shaktis of Brahma as well. Never leave Shakti out. She's a prolific writer. I mean, she wrote a lot. She'd actually channel through writing a lot. So, but you can see once again amplified, including the presence of Magha Nakshatra in her chart very heavily. Okay. So this is the actual Rashi chart. This is how it looks in the Navamsha. Okay. Okay, Edgar Casey, another one. I could go on and on with this. This is how, seems simplistic, but I'll see the same pattern over and over. Once again, power of Magha. Is he sitting on a throne? What is he doing? what was he doing with the Magha Lagna? Well, he was also a channeler. Now his was a little different. He was called the sleeping prophet, whatever. Once again, not too much into worshiping these guys. I'm more just talking about their actual imprint. What did they do? What was the karma palam? What did they do? So he's another one full of the Brahma Trimurti with the Amatya Karaka in a Brahma Trimurti Nakshatra. And it's Shani again in an Agni Tattva, witnessing. Just remember sight with Agni. Now, I don't like to talk about people that are still alive, as I said. So this person, I'm not putting the name. This is a person that is alive and is a medium. We're going to see Magha Nakshatra again. Once again, then this is their Navamsha, same pattern. So very heavy. Now you'll see other patterns too. You see the presence of water, Jala Tattva, and all of them as well. And that's a whole different topic. But if you use the Trimurti together, if you understand who Brahma is, okay, in the Purans, not just that he creates things, and then you understand the Tattva, you're going to be able to define the nakshatra much, much more by the person's gift, by what they're doing. Once again, the distinction, the individuality. That's all I have.
Eve, thank you so much for your beautiful presentation on Trimurti activity in the nakshatras. Specifically in terms of the examples with Brahma, Trimurti. Sam, any comments?
I thought it was very enlightening. Thank you, Eve. It was very enjoyable to see the case studies as well. Blavatsky was very interesting. The theosophical work and all of that was very interesting. Also, Vincent Price. I knew who Vincent Price was. I grew up seeing him on like the Brady Bunch. He was big. My sister loved Vincent Price. It was like her favorite dude ever.
His voice is great. He's in
Yes,
Thriller.
he had a voice kind of like that.
With a low voice. Yeah, he spoke on Michael Jackson's Thriller. And
if you've ever seen like those old like Edgar Allan Poe movies, movies that were made on books of Edgar Allan Poe, like The Raven and other ones, he was in all of them. So
yes, classic Barney. I mean, he's got the huge cluster in the third, right?
Yeah.
One could just see, and that's exactly what he got famous for on the stage, was when he played a villain in a theater. It was theater, actually, yeah.
Thank you, Eve, so much. So I guess it's my turn. So I will just share my screen. It's tough to go last because you experience all these fantastic presentations and then it comes your time. So
pressure's on.
Is my screen displaying properly? So this is my lovely Jyotish family who joined us today for the Royal Nakshatra Summit. And I'm just so grateful and humbled to be in this group today, to be even sharing this satsang with all of you, let alone participating and sharing my own research. So I just want to bow to the other teachers here and gratitude for their wisdom. I'm going to be discussing how to improve our planetary karma with Rahu and Ketu, a nakshatra-based approach. Before I begin, I just want to bow to my various gurus in my life. Of course, my first teacher of astrology, Siddhadeva Simon Chikoisky, who first introduced me to Jyotish, and my lineage and teacher through Amritananda Mayama, Mahadev Levine, from Santa Fe, New Mexico. And of course, I want to bow to some of my other teachers, my uncle, Durgadas David Newman, who introduced me to the Vedas at a very early age. He's a practicing kirtan musician, and my Ayurvedic teacher, Dr. Vasant Lad. And of course, my guru of all my gurus, my divine mother, Mata Amritanandamayama Amaji, thank you for your guidance in my life. Now, with all the amazing research that we've experienced today, I'm just going to encourage those that are participating in the chat to take a break, and those that might be watching this on YouTube right now to put all your phones and distractions away, because my presentation is we're going to tap into the Akasha a little bit and do some more of an intuitive method that I've worked on. Of course, there is a science to the method, but it is intuitively focused. And when I was studying Jyotish, my Jyotish guru Mahadev Levine always taught us that the Jyotir Vidya, the beautiful wisdom of Jyotish, when we can take our ego and our minds out of it through proper sadhana, that we can awake this Jyotir Vidya. We can awake this spirit of Jyotish, this wisdom of Jyotish to move through us. And I want to encourage that energy for all of the practicing Jyotisha out there. So first, I wanted to discuss a little bit about soul cycle philosophy. So samskara are these impressions made from our previous lives. They can be psychological, mental, and spiritual patterns based on our soul's previous lessons. A samskara, I like to describe it as kind of like a tattoo. When the jivatma, the earthly body, passes, the tattoo is removed, the atma leaves the jivatma, but the impression carries forward through to our next incarnation like a scar. Samskara, or karmic theory, are beautifully interwoven into Jyotish, as our samskara are clearly shown in the chart and have a deep relationship with our karmic evolution as manifested in our chart. Samskara, as elaborated in this presentation, manifests as an evolution in 3 different aspects: wisdom, unfinished lessons, and karmic debt, which these manifest in psychological and habitual patterns. How to find a right place. There we go. That's better over there. There we go. So the next, I'm going to discuss the soul's wisdom. How do we see soul's wisdom, and how do we understand it from a Vedic philosophy? So in soul cycle or karma philosophy, our soul has deep wisdom from its previous incarnations and can be delineated through the Jyotish chart. Not everything from our past lifetimes is karmic baggage. Every soul has certain aims and areas of life which it has focused and worked on in our previous incarnations. These are the areas of knowledge and experience on a soul level. The soul's previous wisdom and focus can have various energies, such as mastery, wisdom, knowledge, and instability and struggle. So in other words, just because we've been focusing on a lesson in the past lifetime or maybe researching it, doesn't mean we've experienced too much growth in it necessarily. So when we get into the unfinished lessons, which I like to understand as karmic debt, lessons are on a spectrum. When our soul concentrates on learning a specific lesson, it begins to experience knowledge and wisdom as it relates to that lesson. But that never guarantees or even suggests mastery, just because we're kind of focusing on it, right? I mean, there's all sorts of examples. You know, you can have a lesson to be sober, but you can keep repeating indulgence and intoxication. So it doesn't, just because your soul focuses on that lesson doesn't mean that you learn it. From a karmic philosophy perspective, until a soul has mastered a specific lesson that it is working on, it is continuously reincarnating with new circumstances that promote a deeper wisdom until that lesson is mastered. So basically, if the lesson isn't mastered, you will keep coming back until it is. Often a soul and its incarnation can have a profound wisdom as it relates to a lesson, right? We can have the intellectual knowledge, but can fail in showing that wisdom when tested in the most arduous way. Therefore, the lesson is complete. It's one thing to kind of know what you should do. It's another thing when you're tested in a really difficult situation to really see if you've learned that lesson. The soul will continuously reincarnate until the wisdom can be applied no matter the circumstance or situation, no matter the tension that is applying to the pressure of that lesson. Therefore, It can be shown there is often unfinished business as it relates to our soul cycle, even when there's previous areas of wisdom or experience there. So a little bit about karmic debt philosophy. So karmic debt manifests in multiple ways in soul cycle philosophy and is integrated into samskara. Karmic debt can manifest as a consequences for our struggles as it relates to specific lessons or evolutionary aspect in terms of our soul's wisdom. I don't want to necessarily think of this in terms of like you're being punished. I don't like the punishment idea of karma. This is action reaction. When your soul wants to learn a lesson and you don't learn it, then there's going to be consequences, a reaction to encourage you to eventually learn that lesson. If not in this lifetime, then the next. As we struggle with our unfinished business as it relates to our previous lives, wisdom, the lessons are emphasized through karmic debt, in which we have to work these karmas out in a very specific way. Karmic debt very strongly manifests as a contrast to our previous lives' focus, usually prioritizing, emphasizing, and focusing on certain areas and aims in our previous lives creates an inexperienced and empty aspect in another aim and area of life, which desires to be fulfilled. I like to call that the karmic itch that our soul really wants to scratch. So before I get into Ketu and the nakshatra used to relate to the samskara, I just want to do a quick chant to the divine energy of Ketu. Om Palas Puspa Shankasham Takara Grahamastakam Radram Rajatikam Goram Tam Ketu Pranamam Yaham. Palas Puspa Sankasham Takara Grahamastakam Radram Rajatikam Goram Tam Ketu Pranamam Yaham. Palas Puspa Sankasham Taraka Grahamastakam Radram Rajatikam Goram Tam Ketu Pranamam Yaham. Om Kram Krim Kram Sahakatave Namaha. 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 So how do we use the position of our Ketu nakshatra to maybe determine specific lessons and karmas, samskara? How is Ketu related to our samskar? Nakshatra position is used to determine specific lessons and karmas as relates to our previous lives. Knowledge of the ruling devatas of each nakshatra, as well as the powerful connection to the Jyotirvidya as necessary here. So the two primary things that you need to be able to employ this method is basically a knowledge of the nakshatra devatas and the history there, as well as the power of the Jyotirvidya inside of you. Ruling devata is key to determining specific lessons here because they are the one who's teaching the lesson. Each nakshatra has specific lessons and karmas and will manifest through our past lifetimes wisdom in conjunction with house position and relative dignity. And again, I don't love the concept of dignity even being described here. There's ucha and nicha, but here we're kind of looking at it from an intuitive nakshatra perspective, maybe not so ucha, nicha, debilitated, exalted, mula trikona, the energy behind it, the devata behind it, and really tapping into your heart and your spirit to figure this thing out. So here's an example for Ketu in past lives. For example, Ketu in Jyesta nakshatra shows specific lessons in breaking free from ancestral karmas that have been laid out energetically through our family to become a leader in our own right, to become empowered in our own right. House position and dignity will be used to determine which area, which aim of life we are breaking free from in terms of our ancestral karma. Where are we cutting this karmic tie? And to become a leader in, and dignity will show us how far we evolved we are in that lesson. And again, dignity is not necessarily ucha nicha here, but something you're feeling intuitively. So I have a couple case studies here. Again, this is not something that we can immediately know the exact past lifetimes here. This is an intuitive process, but it is one of my most enthusiastic areas of research. So we're going to be focusing on Ketu and Yoganandaji's chart. So when we're looking at the incredible guru and teacher Yogananda ji, we find Ketu in Swati Nakshatra in the second pada in the third bhav. Now, whenever I'm working on this method, you take in the information, right? You're saying Ketu, Swati Nakshatra, third bhava, and then you close your eyes and you feel that, and you ask the Jyotirvidya to move through you so that it might reveal something powerful here, something what might be beneficial to the native. When I tune into Yogananda ji's chart, we see that Swati Nakshatra, which we know is connected to Lord Vayu, the Devata Vayu, as well as Rahu in the third bhava. So this is showing that when I intuitively connected to Yogananda ji's chart in his previous lifetimes, you get someone who is a powerful mystic and who was learning from other gurus, right? That's the Upachaya, self-improvement evolutionary house. So he was using mystical knowledge, he was using mystical wisdom from teachers that he learned from to better himself, to become his most sattvic self, to become his most pure self. There's a lot of devotion towards self-improvement, embodying the higher version of himself, as well as the ability to kind of look in the mirror and take constructive criticism like from a guru and maybe say, okay, I'm not perfect. I want to humble myself and I want to become kind of the highest soul I can be. But looking at this with Ketu being in a Rahu Nakshatra, this samskara is not fulfilled. There is not a mastery there. That mastery has to be integrated into the next lifetime. And it's interesting, you're seeing a flip of Rahu and Ashwini on the other side, where the nodal nakshatra position is reversed. So you're seeing a very interesting thing in my observation of Yogananda's chart, that the Ketu and Rahu and Ketu is kind of saying, okay, the mastery was done to a certain extent, but it cannot be fully mastered into the next lifetime. Now you're seeing Rahu and Ashwini in the ninth bhava here, where it's saying, okay, part of the karmic debt fulfillment for Yogananda ji was to be a guru, to be a teacher. And he was totally devoted to his gurus and his teachers throughout his lifetime. But we know as he brought kind of the Vedic wisdom to the West, a lot of Westerners today, he's the guru who introduced us to this wisdom. So there is this integration, a karmic debt, if you will, to become a guru, to embody that energy of a guru, even though such a humble and beautiful soul himself, to kind of embody the energy of the guru. So this is a little bit of a soul cycle look into Yogananda ji's chart. I have my chart up here next. And we're going to do a little look at my karmic debt and some of my lessons, right? So when we're looking at some of the karmic debt with my Ketu and Purva Falguni Nakshatra in the seventh bhava, and it's interesting, I've done some like past life regression and stuff, and my own understanding, obviously, I don't think we can really tap into our own past lifetimes. I kind of think that's Pandora's box and is kind of forbidden in some way. But that doesn't mean that we can't get some intuitive insight into our lessons there. So when we're looking at Ketu and Purva Falguni Nakshatra, there is this deep devotional energy that I have towards my interpersonal relationships. Now, again, I mentioned a samskara is like a tattoo. So it's not like I'm not devoted to my interpersonal relationships in this life. But one of the things that was done when I had a past life regression is that I was married in every single one of my previous incarnations. And I was the kind of person that always puts my partners first. I want to make other people happy. We call it people pleasing. I have that tendency within me. And I've always gone out of my way, especially in my past lifetimes, to kind of conform who I am and kind of say, you know what, honey, my dear sweet wife, if you want this for my life, then that's what I want for my life. You want me to do this with my job. You want me to follow this religion. You want me to live here. You want me to travel there. Your wish is my desire. A happy wife is a happy life. And through this energy, there's some level of being able to be a good partner through kind of people pleasing So there is some, like, I guess, some like knowledge or wisdom there, but there's definitely some unfinished business here, because I carry a tendency in this lifetime known as codependency. And I've done a lot of therapy and introspection, and I've gone to group support, and I've worked steps to kind of help me evolve past this place of codependency in my life. But if you look at my karmic debt, when you're seeing Rahu's position in Sattva Nakshatra ascending, we're getting a lot of powerful Shiva energies here, and we're seeing Rahu in its own nakshatra, 15 degrees, very fixed in the house there. So one of the things that I understand is when you're constantly putting people ahead of yourself, you really have no idea who you are. You know, you're constantly trying to conform and compromise who you are to make everyone happy, your parents, your partner, and you lose yourself in that moment. And at the end of your life, and I believe I experienced this in my past lifetime, that there was a lot of resentment, that I didn't explore the mystical path that I was interested in, that maybe I didn't devote myself to the study of Jyotisha, that maybe I didn't travel to the places that I wanted to travel because I just wanted to please and make everyone else happy. So there, in this life with that Rahu ascendant, and obviously there's some demons to conquer there in terms of me finding sobriety along my path and things of that nature. But when I align to that higher energy of this Rahu vibration, it really has allowed me to devote myself to understanding who I am, becoming the best person that I can be, traveling to the places I want to travel, and devoting my life to Jyotish so I can host summits like this and bring people together to share in this beautiful wisdom, because of that Rahu ascending, saying, well, it's fixed. You really don't have a choice here. So now we're going to get a little more into the karmic debt side of things. And I just want to do a quick mantra to Rahu. Om Ardakayam Maharvaryam Chandradichya Vimardhanam Simhita Garbha Sambutam Tam Rahu Pranamam Yaham. Ardakayam Mahaviryam Chandradichya Vimardhanam Simhita Garbha Sambutam Tam Rahu Pranamam Yaham. Ardakayam Mahaviryam Chandradichya Vimardhanam Simhita Garbha Sambutam Tam Rahu Pranamam Yaham. Om Brahm Brim Brahm Saharahave Namaha. 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 Hari Om. Thank you. So next, how do we use the nakshatra position of Rahu to maybe determine some of these karmic debt and where we're at with it? The nakshatra position is used to determine specific lessons and karmas as relates to our previous lives and samskara. Again, same thing with Ketu. The two primary things you're going to need for understanding your karmic debt are knowledge of the ruling devatas, the energies of each nakshatra, as well as doing your best to have the Jyotirvijja energy moving through you. So the ruling devata is key here to determine, you know, who's teaching us the karmic debt, from which perspective are we being told to fulfill this karmic debt. So each nakshatra has specific lessons and karmas and ways in which they act, and that's really where maybe the knowledge here comes in handy. So here's an example that I have. For example, Rahu and Sattva Nakshatra in the 8th house activates a huge karmic debt to experience healing. And I want to emphasize personal healing here, 100 poisons, 100 medicines, on a road towards mystical, occult, and esoteric evolution. You can't put down that poison, you're not going to mystically evolve. This might cause a wounded healer vibration for the native to experience issues with drug or alcoholism, to lead them on a path towards spiritual evolution and deep mystical experience through sobriety. Rahu in its own nakshatra shows going through hell to get to the austere mystical place. So I have a couple examples here that I like to point out. Amy Winehouse, she, you know, I love her music. I love her voice. but her soul's journey so difficult. So it's important to kind of, I think it's a great case study to understand our karmic debt. And if you listen to her music, it's interesting, you'll see some of this stuff show up. So from past lifetime energy, you're seeing Ketu in Jyeshta Nakshatra, and I already used Ketu as a Jyeshta in another example when I was discussing Ketu, and it's conjunct Jupiter here, right? I mean, neutral, friendly with Jupiter. I mean, friendly is an interesting word when you're talking about the interaction between Ketu and Rahu and another graha. Friendly in what way? Friendly in terms of maybe the lessons to be learned being severe. Yeah, friendly to push along the karma. Friendly in terms of our experience being favorable. I'm not so much sure of that, especially with any Ketu conjunction. Right, the moksha here. So the Ketu Jupiter energy and Ketu showing up in Jyeshta, I believe there is a strong past lifetime energy here of, again, similar to me, but kind of putting the partner first. And this energy of, the Scorpio Jyeshta energy, the kind of investigation of, the excitement of romance and sexuality and, kind of the more tantric side of the experience with the partner. But one thing that I find with the Ketu Jupiter conjunction, especially it's in the 7th house, when two people are growing, and this is difficult, if one person's growing in the way they should be, but the partner isn't growing, then due to the nature of this conjunction that the partners that is not growing, instead of the partner that is growing bringing the other partner up, the partner who is not growing is going to bring the other partner down. And if you know Amy Winehouse's story, there's a lot of stories told where, she struggled with drug addiction and alcoholism herself, and she was madly in love with this one partner of hers. And she would get like these short stints of like sobriety, right? But her partner would relapse. And when her partner would relapse, she would relapse too. And unfortunately, after one of her partners relapses, she relapsed, and eventually she left her Atma, left her Jivatma. So she overdosed and passed as a result of the disease of addiction. So clearly there's still a lot of lessons to learn in that 7th house vibration. But did she fulfill some of her karmic debt in this lifetime? I believe so, because when you're looking at Rahu and Mrigashira Nakshatra, and I there's different opinions on this, but I kind of like Rahu and Mrigashira Nakshatra. Part of the energy of this Mrigashira vibration is I'm going to really shine, and I'm going to keep seeking things and finding new opportunities for me to kind of get myself out there and experience the world. And when I reach one goal, it's just a stepping stone to another goal. Mrigashira, the seeking nakshatra, so there's a constant seeking of more and more and more and more. Did this have a negative impact on her addiction? Maybe, because from a personality perspective, this craving of more and more and more might not be the best energy. But this Rahu and Mrigashira Nakshatra, she's known as one of the most famous and most powerful soul singers of our generation. She had won countless of awards. She was a sex icon, right? People thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world, especially if you were from England or whatever. So there's a very, very deep energy here with that Rahu and Mrigashira Nakshatra, which is magnetic, which is attractive. And she realized that, and she said, you know what? I realize I have this magnetic and attraction energy, and I'm going to fulfill that karmic debt by kind of reaching maybe part of my potential, right? But that Ketu and the Jupiter energy is that struggle with codependency and putting the partner first. And, when the people in my life struggle with things, I struggle with those things. When they regress, I regress too. But I still think there was a lot of fulfillment in terms of her tapping into some of her potential, especially with kind of the mark that she left on the world. The last example I have here is Pope Francis. Pope Francis, the Pope, the Catholic Pope, right? I mean, if you're into theology at all, it's a very interesting study. What's interesting, it's kind of a little bit flipped from Amy's chart. So you're seeing Ketu and Mrigashira ascending. So this means that in the past lifetime, I believe that you're seeing a very strong energy of Pope Francis being like kind of like this mystical seeker, this kind of like occult spiritual. Now, of course, Catholicism is a religion, and religions can have their dogma, especially in Catholicism, right? Dogma is a big part of this thing. But I think what you experience with Pope Francis, and he kind of carries that energy into this lifetime, he's breaking some dogmas. I mean, not so far in terms of the potential that dogmas can be broken, because I think that a lot more work can still be done in that direction. But he's definitely the most progressive Pope that we've ever had. And this is because of his ability to kind of look outside of Catholicism, right? He sat on a panel with Amritananda Mayama. There is these beautiful energy of, I'm honoring the spiritual traditions of other cultures. You know, the Catholic Church has been very aggressive against homosexual energy, and there's still a lot of work that can be done here, but he's kind of opened up his heart and said, you know, they deserve love from our church as well. Prostitutes deserve love from our church. You know, drug addicts and alcoholics. He's this heart-centered mystic kind of, you know, every person has their time and place. And I do kind of have appreciated the progressive energy. And I think he's kind of got this mystical energy. Now, what is some of the unfinished energy? Well, it's different when you're in Catholicism, right? We call it a sadhu or brahmacharya from a Hindu perspective. But I believe this was the energy of Pope Francis in his past lifetime, was kind of like, you know, a monk, a nun, this kind of like devoted mystic soul who loved Christ and his teachings. And I think that that's so beautiful from a Christian perspective. But what is the unfulfilled karmic debt there? How about the relationships? It's kind of like that mystical sadhu monkish energy. It's lonely and it's isolated. And so you're seeing a stellium of karmic debt showing up for Pope Francis here with Rahu and Mula Nakshatra, Rahu and Ketu Nakshatra. Now, this is one of the things that I love when you see one of the nodes in the position of another node's nakshatra, because I believe this is showing some level of mastery, especially when Rahu is in a Ketu nakshatra. It shows that you are achieving the pinnacle of your soul's karmic debt. So is Pope Francis fulfilling his karmic debt to the extent that Catholicism allows? Yes. And this Rahu and Mula nakshatra, it's conjunct with very tight conjunction with the sun, less than 1 degree of separation, and a looser conjunction with Jupiter and Mercury as well. And it's all about his interpersonal relationships. And this also is a magnetic attraction, this magnetic attraction of Rahu and Mula energy. You know, he was beloved by all the other, you know, by the popes and the previous popes and the Catholic Church from all different countries. And he was just this beloved pope. It was this magnetic energy. And as I mentioned earlier, the interpersonal connections that Pope Francis has made with other spiritual leaders of other spiritual traditions has progressed Catholic religion in a way that it hasn't been progressed before. He's interacted with Amritananda Mayama. He's interacted with the Dalai Lama. There's this, let's all kind of just see what we can do to make the world a better place through making these powerful connections. Maybe it's not what we know, and allowing ourselves to be humble and saying, well, how about who we know? Because this is a big world that we live in. So that's just a little bit of my elaboration on Pope Francis. So just some concluding remarks. Oh, remedies. So just a few remedies that I wanted to discuss. Obviously, there's all, you know, the basic remedies that you can read of and hear of everywhere. You know, I just kind of listed these because I had to. You know, cat's eye, you know, Ganesh mantra, the colors for Ketu, pitta pacifying diet, the certain pitta pacifying herbs I have listed here: Vidari, Shatavari, Gaduchi, red sandalwood, and Mangista. I remember when I was studying with Dr. Vasant Ladi, I actually did thus the pleasure of like mentioning certain herbs for certain planets, especially with medical Jyotish issues there. So I'm just sharing a little bit of that. But I'm more interested in kind of like the lifestyle remedies. So I think when you're working through this samskara, especially with Ketu, there's some practices that I encourage. One is Vipassana, sensory deprivation, meditation, visiting ashram and temples for Ketu, ancestral rituals, honoring the older generations of your family, respecting your elders. It's something that we're kind of forgetting, especially with some people of my generation. Everyone's so resentful against their parents and grandparents. How about respecting your ancestors in honor of Ketu? And then also giving away your belongings, fasting, prayer. This is all good Ketu remedies, but specific in terms of this method, tap into the samskara bhava, tap into the Jyotirvidya through you and unlock that lesson of Ketu. If your samskara evolution level is mastered, then work to move away from the Ketu karmas, right? If you've because the samskara is like a tattoo. If you've experienced mastery, it doesn't mean that you can't get stuck there. So then work to move away from the Ketu karmas and not repeat the previous soul cycle. For example, Ketu and Ashwini in the 8th, huge samskara evolution level. Ketu's in its own nakshatra, beautiful. But that means kind of maybe move away from that renunciative focus. Maybe you already have a lot of wisdom in that area and kind of look to Rahu in the 2nd bhava. This is an example of we kind of demonize material security from a spiritual paradigm. Maybe there's something to be learned there about finding the balance in the material world. If samskara evolution level is low, unlock the unfinished business remainder of the lesson, right? If you kind of are tapping into and you think there's some work to do with my samskara, what's that work to be done? For example, Ketu in the 7th bhava and Ardra, Ketu and Rahu, focus on interpersonal relationships in the previous incarnations, but that's the previous focus, but a huge amount of unfinished business and lessons in terms of a healthy interpersonal relationship, right? It's kind of like that energy. Either I should have a healthy relationship or maybe not one at all. Development of non-codependent relationship or marriage is evolutionary here. Again, Rahu, classic stuff, Hesonite moldavate, Durga, Shiva, Rahu, rust coloration in our clothing, Vata pacifying diet, always sattvic. And the herbs I like to use for Rahu that Dr. Vasant Lad told me, my favorite are Tulsi and Jatamansi, but Ashwagandha and Yogaraj Guru and Shilajit are also nice too. So just the last little bit of remedies here and, to kind of work through that karmic debt energy with Rahu, just some different suggestions that I pragmatically have realized can be helpful. Foreign and exotic experiences, international travel, going to new places, mystical spiritual traditions, foreign religion, tantra, shamanism, plant medicine, and my personal favorite, sobriety and abstinence, because I kind of think that's helpful in terms of aligning to that higher energy of Rahu. So some specific energies for the Rahu karmic debt evolution. So if it's mastered, right, and this is a Jyotirvidya approach, allow yourself to be tested in regards to the lesson. If true mastery is experienced and karmic debt is fulfilled, return to your position of moksha for Mahasamadhi. Allow yourself to be tested, right? You can think that you learn a lesson, but if you're running away from the test of that lesson, I believe there's still some work to do. So return to your position of moksha if maybe there's some level of mastery. Look towards Ketu. That's how you're going to get the Mahasamadhi to, get closer to ending this cycle of constant reincarnation. So for example, if Rahu is in Swati in the 10th bhava, Rahu's in its own nakshatra in the 10th, it could suggest a level of mastery on some level of karmic debt fulfillment. I say that tentatively because I never like to say that anyone's mastered in anything, or why would you be here? Perhaps this manifests with an international and relocated career in which the native has achieved material success, fame, and recognition. If applicable, then they should go to follow Ketu and return to their homeland, or maybe the homeland of their ancestors, and renunciate their success and materiality for Samadhi, right? You have a karmic debt to go have this impact on the world, and you've achieved all of this wealth from it. Well, then it's time to kind of renunciate it and go back towards the spiritual path. If karmic debt evolution level is low, the native should totally dedicate and prioritize the associated area and aim of life it focuses on. Give it 110%. Allow themselves to be humble, right? Rahu can struggle with that sometimes, and admit that despite where your Ketu is placed, they might not want to focus on Ketu. Their debt is with Rahu, and they will not experience maximum evolution until they dedicate their karmic fulfillment towards Rahu. Go towards Rahu with all your heart when karmic debt evolution level is low. It represents having a lot of debt to pay off. For example, Rahu in Komilla Nakshatra in the second house suggests a continued soul pattern of poverty and low material resources, what I call a poverty mindset. They renunciate money and have never held a job or wealth because they see it as Maya, the great illusion. Their soul has not experienced Arta-bhava, and they will continuously reincarnate until they allow themselves to fulfill Arta. I always joke, a soul has been focusing on moksha for many, many lifetimes. The Jivatma leaves the Atma and gets to the Paramatman and says, oh, dear God, I'm ready for Mahasamadhi. And God says, go get a job. So just some final concluding remarks that I want to share. The soul cycle, karma, and reincarnation are essential principles of Vedic philosophy and Jyotish. To believe in Jyotish without those principles, or at least being open-minded to them, is limiting, and in my opinion, misses the point of Jyotish. If you don't believe in soul cycle, karma, and reincarnation, then maybe Jyotish isn't right for you. The point being to align to and achieve the Vedic four aims of life, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, on our path to Mahasamadhi, ending the cycle of reincarnation, dhammartha, kama, mokshanam. Ketu can be used specifically to determine the natures and lessons experienced in our previous incarnations, our samskar. Depending on the level of samskar evolution, there is unfinished business in our previous life lessons, and due to previous focus creates a karmic debt, which we can see through Rahu's position. I say this as my disclaimer, 99.9% of the time, complete and total mastery of our samskara is not obtained. Constantly people come to me for a reading and they're saying, is this my last lifetime? I want this to be my last lifetime. And I don't know that I've looked at a chart yet, except for a Satguru where that's the case. Rahu shows the aim and area in our lives which yearns to be concentrated on and fulfilled to complete our soul cycle. Depending on the karmic debt evolution level, this will either be exciting and come easy to us, or be something we fight against despite it being our karma and soul's yearning. Sometimes our conscious yearning, right, is distant from our soul's yearning. We have to differentiate desire and fulfillment. So comparing and contrasting the methods elucidated on in this presentation can determine the exact approach a native should have in their lives to fulfill the bulk of their karma and take a step closer to maximum evolution. Understanding Ketu's house sign and nakshatra position will show your relationship to your samskar, and Rahu's house sign and nakshatra position will show your relationship to your debt. Through these two aspects, we can fulfill our karma and get closer to samadhi, which is the purpose of this incarnation. That's all I have. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to share this presentation. May we all fulfill the four Vedic aims of life, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha on our path to samadhi. Namaste.
Well, I'll start. Great presentation, brother. Hey, you know, I love the Pope Francis. I did his chart when he first, you know, became the Pope, and yeah, it's a very interesting chart. And I also noticed his Arjun Nakshatra. As soon as he came out, I was like, this guy's he's gonna blow up the system. You know, he's Gemini, all those planets in Sagittarius in the 7th, and as you know, the Ardra definitely. And again, you weren't talking about ascendants, but because you know he's got that Rahu ruled nakshatra, right? Obviously, Ardra, which is like of all, it's the most opposed to conventional religion of any nakshatra, right? It's opposite. It's like it's Ardra, it's Rudra who's there to like blow up the priest and say, don't make me believe anything. You got to prove it to me, right? So seeing that was his ascendant, and then like you say, Ketu in the 1st, and then Rahu in the 7th, which is kind of you know, really focused on how we apply that, because the seventh house, we talk about relationships, but it's really about agreement. It's about respect for others. It's about harmonizing our individual energy with others. And so, of course, the things that you highlighted were very poignant. His fierce advocacy, even especially for things where religion has gotten or has become disconnected from individuals, and especially things like their romantic choices and lifestyle choices and gay stuff and whatnot, and abuses, personal abuses. He's been a very strong advocate. And of course, the other thing that you said, like he had his council with all the spiritual leaders. It wasn't just Amma, it was Buddhist leaders, Muslim leaders. I have a famous picture of that where he had that. So that was a great case study that I also did. I wanted to reflect back that I had the same thing when he first became Pope. So very well done.
Thank you, Sadashiva.
I just wanted to mention, I love how you're always focused on healing.
On what?
He's always focused on healing. I love that. Yeah, it's just, if you summarize everything you say, you're really, you're a healer, right? So thank you. It's just this very, it's like you pinpoint that. And I loved Amy Winehouse, how yeah, beautiful, how tragic. But okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eve.
Something else I wanted to say real quick, just because and this is just a general thing about popes and kings. I've done many case studies, wasn't mentioned, but not that you need to, but he was also born near an eclipse. It was the day before the solar eclipse. Almost every pope and many kings, including the royal family, look at all their charts. All of them are either born on an eclipse. Prince Charles was also married to Diana on an eclipse, but eclipses are a hallmark of popes and kings, because popes are literally kings. They're kings of the church. So he was born on an eclipse. Who was the one? Pope John Paul II, even the one in between, the one that was only pope for a while, was born either on an eclipse or like a day before. So look at this for your research going forward, everybody. Popes and kings or royalty are all born on eclipses or near eclipses, all of them. And he was no different, because his Tithi, it's Amavasya Tithi, because his sun was there in Scorpio, like I think it was 19 degrees or something like that at the very end of Scorpio. Anyway, just wanted to point that out too. I didn't want to forget. Sorry.
All good. I just wanted to thank everyone who's watched live here on Zoom, as well as on YouTube or Facebook afterwards. I'd like to give a special thanks from the bottom of my heart and soul to all of the panelists who joined us today. I'd like to thank Sanjay Rath, who had to go because it's late in India, Komilla Sutton, who had to run, and Sam Geppi and Eve Mendoza. It's so good to be here with you, my divine Jyotish family. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you all. And thanks for those who participated.
Yeah, thank you all, especially those of you who hung out to the end. It's impressive. Thank you.
I'm just going to do a quick closing mantra. Sahanau vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, saha viryang karavavahe, tejasvina vaditamastu, ma vidvashavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Guruvyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you, brothers. Thank you.